Chapter 23:32. When I saw her leave in a fit of anger, I really wanted to chase after her. But I knew I couldn't. After working so hard for so long, I only needed a little more time to secretly kill Feng Ling Air. I couldn't give up halfway. That was the promise I made to my senior brother at the memorial hall. But even if I didn't pursue such an outstanding girl, it didn't mean that others wouldn't. The moment I saw Murong Nan, other than feeling unhappy, I was even more afraid. I was afraid that she would like him because of his gentleness, afraid that she would like him because of his passion, afraid that she suddenly didn't like me. When we met again in the Imperial Garden, when I saw Murong Nan standing by her side to protect her, I suddenly realized that I had fallen into more emotions than I had imagined. In fact, I also hoped that one day I could stand firmly by her side, regardless of everything. Fortunately, her imperial father loved her very much. When the two sides quarreled, the emperor who loved his daughter stood on her side without hesitation. Without saying anything, he directly sent Feng Ling Air to the Cold Palace. In fact, I should be glad because she was sent to the Cold Palace one step closer to death. That night, I brewed a pot of peach blossom wine and followed her to a bare tree. I had never been to this place before, but I felt that it was inexplicably familiar. She asked me, now that Feng Ling Air has fallen to such a state, will I still go find her? In fact, I almost told her the truth at that moment. But in the end, I held back. Such a simple girl was not suitable to know such a cruel thing. Whether it was Yuran or Feng Ling Air, I didn't want her to know. She was suitable to stay in the castle forever, undisturbed by anything. I didn't want to be the one to disturb her, so I asked her to wait for me for 10 days. When Feng Ling Air died, I would tell her the truth. But in the end, I had cruelly killed a person, so I had to pay the price. Feng Ling Air becoming a malicious spirit was the price I didn't expect. The Destiny Master was connected to Yin and Yang. Feng Ling Air was killed by my own hands, so I was the first to know that she had become a malicious spirit. Master told me that whoever tied the bell should untie it. When asked about the method, he said that he needed a life. Actually, I didn't need to ask to know that he was talking about her life. But I absolutely disagree. I didn't keep my promise of 10 days. Strange things began to appear around her, especially when the Yin Shi was heavy. These things were even more frequent. I had been by her side the whole time and had calculated the danger for her, but I couldn't stop Feng Ling Air. Just as I was deep in thought, she went to the memorial hall. I knew he was putting himself in danger because he wanted me to appear. What a stubborn girl. She never considered the consequences of her actions. That night, after she fainted, I used the Heaven's Fate Master's ability to forcefully separate my soul from my body. In other words, I was already dead that night. However, Feng Ling Air didn't know, and neither did she. Feng Ling Air thought that she had succeeded and wanted to exchange identities with her on the night of the full moon. Ridiculous, truly ridiculous. With me here, how could I let her get hurt? It's just that I couldn't stay by her side. She looked really good in her wedding dress. It was light cinnabar and had some red flowers on her mouth. I thought that the underworld was my final destination. I wasn't willing to see her again in the next life, because I didn't want to wait for the next life. Chapter 23:33. My master told me that everything in the world, aside from the end of time, everything was parallel. Returning to 1,000 years ago was my fate, and it was also the most inevitable result of me and her being separated. But I was born to not believe in fate. Because I was a Heaven's Fate Master, I could be consigned to eternal damnation, but I couldn't live without her. After 1,000 years of time and space, there was only one thing I could do: let her come. Although the hope was very slim, I still prepared for everything. When I saw Linning for the first time, I felt something different from this girl. The fate of the soul, this girl's fate in this life was to die early. But because my fate was the same as hers, I felt that she would be the condensed body of my soul, waiting for her to come. Actually, waiting was a very painful thing. But while I was waiting, I would inadvertently see some scattered fragments in my dreams. Those fragments were very real, as if they had really existed. The Empress who was considerate, and the Emperor who loved the Empress deeply. There seemed to be some misunderstanding between them. Although they never said it, I could feel a deep grudge between them. Every time the Empress used the poison, she would silently wipe her tears. Every time the Emperor drank it, he would look at her with a very doting gaze. The scenes in my dreams were very blurry. I couldn't even see their faces clearly, but I could feel an inexplicable pain in my heart. There was a sentence that I especially remembered. The Emperor said, "After I leave, you have to take good care of yourself. Eat whatever you want. Don't force yourself if you're full. Don't be afraid. I've already taken care of everything, including the personal guards you're most worried about." He also said, "I'm about to die, I know." I didn't know what happened between them. I only knew that this dream kept appearing in these 7 years. Over and over again, I couldn't get rid of it. I used 7 years to wait, but I never thought that I would make a mistake in my divination. The day Linning died, I divined it. As for how she died, or who killed her, didn't care at all. But her sister seemed to care a lot. I thought that I did feel guilty towards Linning, so I didn't care too much about her sister's actions. But I never thought that the person Lin Jiao wanted to kill was her. When they met again, the sky was filled with dark clouds. She was dressed in a plain white brocade robe, holding the familiar phoenix dance sword in her hand as she stood in the crowd. I felt a buzzing sound in my head, as if I'd been struck by lightning. His back stiffened, and even his heart trembled uncontrollably. It was a kind of breathing, a feeling of suffocation. She looked at me calmly. Her faintly Guang was so good-looking. It felt like we were back to the first time we met. She was also dressed like this, standing in the snow. A cool breeze brushed past the satin belt at the corner of her clothes and her hair. Everything around us seemed to freeze at this moment. It was as if there was no one else but me and her. At that moment, I walked up to her and hugged her. That kind of steady warmth entered my heart. Only then could I be sure that she was back. No matter what method she used, she was finally back. Actually, I'm not a good person. I've done a lot of shady things for my own happiness. But it doesn't matter. As long as I can be with her in this life, I will have no regrets, even if I fall into eternal hell in my next life. There's a sentence that I've always wanted to take back. If there's a next life, please remember me. Chapter 23:34. Welcome back, host. Luo Qinshan was stunned for a moment. She didn't even notice when she returned to the primal chaos space. Only when she confirmed that she was back did she slowly come back to her senses. Why did you come back? Does the host want to see the scene before and after your death? Luo Qinshan thought for a bit before gently shaking her head and saying, "I don't want to see it." She vaguely remembered that she was sick, and very sick at that. Perhaps it was because the burden of traveling through time was too great, but her body had always been in poor health. In her later years, her body became worse and worse, almost unable to stand the cold. Even if Mo Yi was careful, there was no way for her to not get sick. As long as she was sick, she wouldn't get better for 10 days to half a month. He almost didn't go to work as he stayed with her until she gradually got better. But the time she got sick became more and more frequent and longer. Towards the end, even drinking a bit of cold water would cause her to have a high fever. Mo Yi told her that this was all his fault. If he hadn't gone against heaven's will, she wouldn't have had to suffer like this. Actually, he really hoped that this kind of punishment would fall on him and not the person he loved the most. The heavens must know that her life was millions of times more important to him than his own. That's why they were so cruel and left the sin to her. Why does the host look so unhappy? The system's words interrupted her thoughts. She silently rolled her eyes and said, "Can you be happy when you die?" The host left without any pain in this life, so there's no need to be too worried. The ending is good. Actually, the system was right. The ending was good, so she wasn't unhappy. It was just that Mo Yi must be very sad because she was the one who left him first. Mo Yi's personality was different from the male lead who had experienced so much. He was the kind of man who was gentle with endless patience. He kept everything in his heart. Unless he was about to die, he would never let her emotions be affected. Even when he was about to die, Mo Yi didn't want her to worry, so he always had a smile on his face every day. Actually, she was very clear that many times when he quietly hugged her, he would slightly tremble. She shook her head and let out a long sigh. Let's continue. The following is a summary of the data for this mission. Please read it carefully. Name: Luo Qingchen Plain Space. Love across 1,000 years. Mission completion rate: 100%. There are currently 5 items in the express storage. 4/5 exquisite ring. 9-section moon whip. Phoenix dance sword. Universal medicine box. Permanent ability: space and time freeze. LV 4 permanent ability. Teleportation LV2 exchange points. 8,000 base points. 40. Host: the 38th mission panel is below. In the next second, the image in the bronze mirror changed. Mission level: A. Experience gained. 500. Female lead. Luo Qingchen male lead. Qianxi Nai supporting female lead. Ba Lianxin supporting male lead. Hua Caiji mission details: return to a week after the death of the female lead and obtain the love of the male lead. This time the value panel is very high. Luo Qingchen pursed her lips and said, "Could it be an idol singer's playing?" Thinking like this, she suddenly felt the spotlight shine on her. She held the microphone and sang while dancing, not forgetting to make a heart sign. The host may be disappointed. Luo Qingchen blinked and said, "What is that? Why do I have a bad feeling?" Chapter 23:35. She didn't feel dizzy at all. She was just a little scared. Luo Qingchen, who had just received all the memories, felt that this was a really exciting story. Or it could be said that this was a plane she had never experienced before. The end of the world. 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 The scenes in the memories were very bloody. From level 1 zombies to level 9 zombies. From level D ability users to level S ability users. Every scene was so fresh in her memory. But excitement was excitement. The life of the original owner wasn't as good as imagined. Whether the end of the world came or not, the original owner was a clown living under someone else's roof. But after the end of the world came, she became one of the first awakened ability users. And she was a double awakened ability user. In the original owner's memory, until the moment of her death, there were only 3 double awakened ability users in the end of the world. She was one of them, and she was the only girl. But this was all in the future. The preface had to start from the original owner's experience. She was a poor child through and through. She did not hide her identity. She was just a poor person. But she was good in both character and studies. So she entered the business empire for a high scholarship every year. The original owner's father died early, and her mother carried the family on her own. Her younger brother was blind, a clean and picturesque boy with all the looks of youth. It was as if he closed his eyes, a breeze could charm thousands of girls. But unfortunately, he was blind. The original owner's mother worked part-time in a rich family to support the family. Once, the rich man had a hangover and forced her mother. And it just so happened that she got pregnant with a child at one go. Because the rich man only had one daughter, he especially wanted a son. It was worth mentioning that the daughter was the supporting female lead by Lianxin. Although the original owner's mother had a status, for the sake of this child and to carry on the family line, the older generation decided to keep the original owner's mother and let her become the second concubine of the Su family. Of course, the status of the second concubine was lower than that of the servants in the Su family. After all, Bai Dashan had a legitimate aunt, Yi Qinghuan, and Bai Lianxin was the daughter of Su Dashan and Yi Qinghuan. The little princess who was spoiled by the whole family since she was young was naturally doted on. She was someone else's child, the Snow White in the fairy tale. Oh no, to be more precise, she should be the evil queen in fairy tales. Because she really wasn't a good person. The original owner's mother suffered the most abuse when she was in the Bai family, and it was from this 18-year-old girl. Sometimes, the harshness of words was even more unbearable than the physical harm. Bai Lianxin was such a person. Every word she said was sharp and piercing. But for the sake of her daughter and son, as well as the unborn child, the original owner's mother endured with great difficulty. Until the child with the orthodox blood of the Bai family was born, the mother of the original owner thought that all the torture was over. Unexpectedly, 2 hours after the child was born, the mother of the original owner was kicked out of the hospital. At the same time, he was chased out of the Bai family. The original owner accepted all the humiliation. After all, this was a society where the strong preyed on the weak. There was nothing to complain about. The half-brother she had never seen before was adopted by Yi Qinghuan the next day and became her and Bai Dashan's son. For the Bai family, the original owner's mother was just a surrogate mother. Yes. Chapter 23:36. After everything was done, Bai Dashan gave the previous host's mother 100,000 yuan as the cost of giving birth to a son. He also told her to take this 100,000 yuan and leave his city forever. The previous host's mother didn't take it. She said that she could never have anything to do with the Bai family, but she couldn't leave a city. After all, her daughter and son, one relied on her talent to enter the Business Empire Academy. The other relied on her talent to enter the International Academy of Music. No matter what, she couldn't leave this city and be irresponsible to her two children. Bai Dashan was afraid that the previous host's mother would pester her, so he sent people to cause trouble at their rented place. It wasn't until they moved to the suburbs, 10 kilometers away from a city, that Bai Dashan let them go. But this didn't mean that the previous host could live a peaceful life. Because she went to the same school as Bai Lianxin, she was targeted no matter what she did. Her homework was gone. Her sneakers were hidden. These were all child's play. What was even worse was that Bai Lianxin sent people to bully the previous host's little brother, Luo Qingyan. The previous host's little brother was a very gentle and introverted man. In order to not make his sister worry, even if he was bullied, he would never say a word. But even so, the previous host didn't feel any hatred. Society was like this. Money could make the devil turn millstones. She was born like this, so she couldn't blame anyone. But her kindness couldn't bring back the gratitude of the Bai family. Instead, it was bone-chilling. December 31st, 2250. This was supposed to be the New Year's Eve, but it became everyone's nightmare. A dark red rain fell from the sky. The rain fell to the ground and didn't dissipate for a long time. This rain continued for the entire night and only stopped at dawn. But the sky that should have been bright didn't light up. The people who were drenched by the dark red rain all suddenly had fever. No matter how much antibiotics they took, it didn't get better. At first, the medical center defined it as a high fever caused by a viral infection. After all, in 2250, industrialization had spread all over the world. There was a shortage of food and land. As industrialization continued to expand, the pollution to nature increased. Although the dark red rain didn't make everyone feel threatened, the sky that didn't light up made everyone panic. But after all, the temperature didn't drop and there was no hail. After a day or two, no one seemed to care. The students went to class as usual, and the employees went to work as usual. They seemed to be very excited. After all, going to class together at night was a very rare thing. But this curiosity only lasted for 2 days. On the third day, the people in the hospital who had high fevers suddenly began to change. Bodies stiffening, eyeballs turning red, teeth exposed, skin thinning, blood vessels protruding, strength increasing. These feverish people changed very quickly. Their movements became mechanical, and their brains seemed to be unable to think at all. Furthermore, they yearned for fresh blood. The hospital became the first place to fall in the apocalypse. Those who had a high fever turned into zombies within a few hours. No matter if they met someone they didn't know or didn't know, there was only one reaction: bite, bite, bite. They had no humanity, only blood in their eyes. The appearance of zombies meant that the world had opened a new chapter and entered a new realm. Good and evil, good and bad. If there is good, then there is evil. If there is good, then there is bad. Any kind of power would have to contend with each other. No matter how weak the resistance was, there would always be a way to counteract or reinforce each other. Chapter 23:37. The original owner belonged to the first group of paranormals, and the first one to awaken was a fire ability. After the hospital fell, the number of zombies began to multiply several times. People began to crazily snatch supplies, and the supermarket became the second place to fall. Coincidentally, the original owner met the Bai family near the supermarket who were fleeing for their lives. Bai Dashan, Yi Qinghuan, and their daughter Bai Lianxin. They stood on the moral high ground and criticized the original owner for being filial, taking them to a safe place, and helping them bring food, water, and daily necessities. The kind, brainless, original owner actually agreed to the so-called moral, unreasonable request of the Bai family and escorted them to a safe villa. Although the zombies in the early days of the apocalypse were relatively weak, the original owner's ability was also weak. In addition, paranormals were not as effective as zombies. On the way to the villa, the original owner was injured. Once a paranormal became a paranormal, they would not become zombies, so even if they were bitten by zombies, they would not mutate. But it did not mean that it would not hurt. The original owner endured the pain and brought the supplies to the villa, but was ordered by Dashin to keep watch for them. The reason was still the same. Your half-brother has just been born. If you don't protect us, you are an evil creature. In the end, the original owner gritted her teeth and agreed. The Bai family lay in a warm bed, eating steak, drinking juice, and enjoying the best treatment in the apocalypse. She, her mother, and her blind brother could only eat bread in the cold wind, which the Bai family thought was kind. However, even with such kindness, what he got in return was not the same as what he had done. Instead, he got hurt even more. In the post-apocalyptic world, anyone with a brain would be able to clear their thoughts quickly, and in this new era, they would be able to occupy the leadership position. Among them, scientific researchers accounted for a large part. After all, before the apocalypse, they had studied and simulated the end of the world. For these things, compared to ordinary people, their ability to accept them was much faster. Among them, Dr. Lin Wansheng was the first to establish a research group in the early days of the apocalypse. They not only studied zombies, but also paranormals. Zombies were easy to catch, but paranormals were difficult to find. Anyone who helped to catch paranormals could get the protection of the Academy of Sciences and live in a safe villa specially set up by the Research Institute. The villa there had a large number of high-tech equipment, which fully blocked the invasion of zombies and provided all necessities for clothing, food, housing, and transportation. After Dashin knew about this, he decided to send the original owner to be an experimental subject in exchange for the chance to live in a safe villa. That night, the moon was dark red as blood. Dashin called the original owner to the study of the villa. First, they chatted, then walked behind the original owner and knocked her out with a stun baton. When the original owner woke up again, she was already in the laboratory. She was lying naked on the cold, experimental bed, her hands and feet bound by iron chains. At that moment, her mind went blank. She had no idea what was going on. She didn't even think that it was the Bai family who harmed her. She thought that zombies had invaded the villa. But a few seconds later, when she saw the doctor in the white coat, she knew that the one who hurt her was not a zombie, but the beast in human face Dashin. In order to complete the experiment, Lin Wansheng let the captured zombies bite the original owner's mother and brother, turning them into zombies. Chapter 23:38. The previous host was locked up in the laboratory for 3 days, being tortured and humiliated. In the end, her head was cut open and nuclear energy came out. The nuclear energy of a C-grade power user was covered in a light blue glow. That's right. The previous host was stronger than normal power users. When she awakened her power, she had jumped a grade, directly jumping past the D grade to become a C-grade power user. It was a pity that she was killed by Dashin before she could start a new chapter in her life and the fate of her family. This deep hatred and regret brought the previous host's thoughts to the bronze mirror in the chaotic space. Therefore, the host Luo Qingshan appeared. She returned to 7 days before the previous host's death. The apocalypse hadn't arrived yet. Luo Qingshan narrowed her eyes and looked at the clock in the middle of the classroom. The date on it was December 27th, 2250. In the previous host's memories, the male lead Qian Sinai and the supporting male lead Hua Kaijin rarely appeared, so there was no interaction between them. The supporting male lead Hua Kaijin was the young master of a city's largest corporation. He had white skin, golden hair, and an evil smile on his lips. There were many girls around him, but he never had a girlfriend. He was the male god that Bai Lianxin loved. Luo Qingshun looked at Hua Kaijin, and the sunlight outside the window shined down on his handsome face. He really was a handsome man like his name. It was like he had come out of a painting. He seemed to feel someone's gaze and turn his head, meeting Luo Qingshun's gaze. He was stunned before revealing a faint smile, revealing a very bright smile. Luo Qingshun was also stunned before blinking twice. She turned her head with cold eyes, and her right hand tapped on the table out of habit. Because she had observed Hua Kaijin first, she had a very strange feeling when she looked at Qian Xinai. Thick mushroom hair, black-rimmed glasses, dark skin, and a face full of pimples. This was her first time feeling sorry for the male lead's appearance in 38 worlds. It said that Qian Xinai was the son of a nouveau riche. He was able to get into the Business Empire Academy not because he was talented, but because he had given a lot of money. The previous host's knowledge of Qian Xinai was limited to this. She didn't know anything else. Her eyes stayed on Qian Xinai for a long time, and only when the bell rang did she come back to her senses. However, what really woke her up was not the next bell, but Bai Lianxin's sharp voice and sarcastic tone. Yo, you commoner, you secretly looked at young Master Jean during class, right? She crossed her arms in front of her chest and rolled her eyes. Humph. She had been paying attention to Hua Kaijin at all times. This commoner with no status actually dared to peek at her Adonis. What made her even angrier was that Hua Kaijin had smiled at her just now. Yes, he was smiling. Such a beautiful smile should belong to her. How could it belong to someone else? Luo Qingshun heard this and looked over Bai Lianxin. She had a pink tutu dress, wavy hair, and a crystal crown on her head. With heavy makeup, she didn't look like an 18 or 19-year-old student at all. Rather, it was a face that made people tired of looking at her. But there was one thing that Bai Lianxin deserved praise. It was that her observation skills were quite good. I didn't peek. Luo Qingshun narrowed her eyes as a chill came from her body. Hee hee. Bai Lianxin gave 2 laughs of disdain. I clearly saw. Chapter 23:39. See, everyone took a cold breath. The matter of Bai Lianxin liking Hua Kaijin was known by the entire class, and even the entire school. The commoners liked the school hunk. It can't be the fairy tale of the prince and Cinderella, right? Don't. Young Master Jean is so handsome. He is a beautiful man. That's right, that's right. I don't want him to belong to anyone. Shh, be quiet. How can we not want the person young Miss Bai likes? The gossips of the surrounding onlookers quickly entered her ears. Everyone was talking one after another, as if they had defined Hua Kaijin as the Prince Charming in their hearts and the object of their admiration. Luo Qingshun's voice in her heart was, although the male lead of this world can't compare to him, her little big brother Jiusheng is 1,000 times more handsome than him. All right? Oh, that's not right. 10,000 times. The Bai family had a high position in a city. Even if there were people who had feelings for Hua Kaijin, they wouldn't dare openly say it. Everyone could only bury their feelings of worship and admiration deep in their hearts. Luo Qingshun, do you not want to stay here anymore? Bai Lianxin was clearly infuriated by her words. She raised her right hand, intending to slap her. Although there weren't many commoners in a city's Business Empire Academy, it didn't mean that Luo Qingshun was the only one. Although she looked down on people who were poor and had no status, it didn't mean that she had the time to target them one by one. The reason why she was targeting Luo Qingshun was because her cheap mother had given birth to a child that shouldn't have appeared in the Bai family. Although her father, Bai Dashan, had chased the boy's mother out of the Bai family after the boy was born, there was still a boy adopted by her mother. That child would always stay in the Bai family. Based on what? That child should have been born in the slums. Based on what should she share her father's love, the money and status of the Bai family? She wasn't willing, but she couldn't do anything to that child. The hatred and resentment that had gathered in her heart could not be vented. She could only vent it on Luo Qingshun from time to time. It was not just 1 or 2 times that she had caused trouble for her. Commoners were all weak, and she had never resisted. This made her feel especially good. Little did he know that today, it had suddenly changed. Luo Qingshun, who had always been weak in her eyes, unexpectedly caught her slap without saying a word and then pushed her hard. She almost lost her balance and fell to the ground. Luo Qingshun's cold eyes narrowed. Her clear eyes carried an indescribable chill as she looked at her and said, "It's not up to you whether I want to work or not." The tragic death of the previous life was still vivid in her mind. The hatred in the original owner's heart was like a ball of fire, condensing in the deepest part of her heart and never dissipating. As for the Bai family, she couldn't wait to grind their bones and scatter their ashes. Good, good, good. Very good. Bai Lianxin gritted her teeth and glared at her with a pair of malicious peach blossom eyes. You pushed me, so don't even think about staying in school. I'll let you see if what I say counts. As soon as her voice fell, she shouted to the two students behind her, "You two go to the dean's office and tell him that a commoner in our class actually hit someone and disturbed the school's atmosphere." Bai Lianxin's next words were spoken word by word in an incomparably clear and concise manner. "Please, open, remove her." Chapter 2340. Bai Lianxin naturally didn't understand what Luo Qingshun meant. She just looked at her fearless and indifferent expression and felt particularly angry. "Ha ha." She shrugged and laughed coldly. "Looks like you don't believe that you'll be expelled. Luo Qingshun, you're too confident. Money is king in this world. I'll say it right here. Today I'll definitely. Tis TSK, TSK. Luo Qingshun spoke softly. She touched her ears and impatiently interrupted her impassioned speech. "Aren't you tired of nagging? If you want to expel me, you'll have to see if I give you a chance." She unhurriedly tidied up the things on her desk, zipped up her bag, and slung it over her shoulder. "See you never." Bai Lianxin was completely stunned. Even the two people behind her, who were about to complain to the school administration office, stopped in their tracks. What was wrong with Luo Qingshun? Was she crazy? It wasn't easy for her to get into Business Empire College with results that were disdained by the aristocrats. Was she going to give up just like that? You? Suddenly, Bai Lianxin didn't know what to use to threaten her. Her face flushed red and her eyes widened. She couldn't say a single word. Hua Kaijin leaned against the wall with both hands in his pockets. He sized up Luo Qingshun with a faint gaze and then said with a chuckle, "Lianxin, we're all classmates. Why don't we just let it go? It's just a small matter." Bai Lianxin, who was already trembling with anger, was slightly stunned. She hadn't expected Hua Kaijin to speak up for Luo Qingshun. Young Master Jin, she bit her lip, but at least she had regained her dignity. After all, she really couldn't get out of the embarrassing situation just now. Hua Caijin's words, on the contrary, made her speechless. "You commoner who doesn't know what's good for you. I'll let you off today because of young Master Jin." Bai Lianxin's mouth twitched, her eyes filled with disdain as she looked at Luo Qingshun. "But if you do it again, I definitely won't forgive you." As soon as she finished speaking, she didn't forget to hold her head high and puff out her chest, regaining the imposing manner that she had just lost. "Ha ha!" Luo Qingshun laughed stiffly, then looked at Bai Lianxin and said, "Hey, do you think you're a judge in a novel?" The words that came out of his mouth were like that of a retard. "Do I need you to spare me? How can you spare me?" Be reasonable. Direct confrontation was what she was best at. Looking at Bai Lianxin's pale face, she felt a special sense of satisfaction. "Luo Qingshun," she almost screamed, pointing at her nose. "Just you wait. I definitely won't let you off." Bai Lianxin never thought that one day she would be bullied by Luo Qingshun. Moreover, she was stepping on her face and humiliating her like this. In her eyes, she was the high and mighty princess, the powerful queen. Luo Qingshun was a commoner who was lowly to the bone. She could only bully her. But today, this shameless commoner actually humiliated her in front of all her classmates, including her male god, Hua Kaijin. She definitely wouldn't let her off. "Oh," she shrugged her shoulders indifferently and said, "I like it when you see me as an eyesore and can't get rid of me. Moreover, you'll never be able to get rid of me. Luo Qingshun, I'm telling you." Bai Lianxin slammed the table and said, "Your name definitely won't appear on next year's qualification list." She definitely wouldn't let Luo Qingxin stay in the Business Empire Academy. At this time, she had already walked to the door, but because of Bai Lianxin's words, she stopped. Chapter 23:41. She could clearly feel that when she said those words, there was a pair of focused eyes looking at her from behind. Although she didn't turn around, she could vaguely guess that the person looking at her should be the ugly male lead. His name was very good, Qian Xinai. That's right, other than those focused eyes, there was also Bai Lianxin's piercing screams. Of course, Luo Qingxun pretended she couldn't hear anything. For days, there were still 4 days. The values of this world, the outlook on life, morals, and even the world would all change greatly. In such a short period of time, there were too many things she had to do and prepare. How could she have time for classes? She didn't even have time to eat, all right? It would take around an hour to get home from school. Luo Qingxun thought about it and decided not to go home for 3 days. She had to gather as many resources as she could within the limited time she had. Once the apocalypse came, this world would no longer have order. Stealing would become a natural thing. The bad side of human nature would be completely revealed. But before that, she had a very big problem. Money. She had no money. But it didn't matter if she had no money. She had the system. The host only has 8,000 exchange points. After entering the A-grade mission, the host has long stopped receiving exchange points. I know. It was clearly written on the bronze mirror every time. The words were so big, I could see it. Actually, Luo Qingxun could understand that the so-called exchange points were the help she received from the beginning of the world mission. Starting from the A-grade mission, she no longer received exchange points. This proved that she had to treasure the mere 8,000 exchange points she had. Does the host want to use exchange points to exchange for money? Yes. According to the latest exchange rules of this world, 1,000 exchange points can be exchanged for 1 million yuan. It really was cheap. The system told the host a long time ago that money in this world was very cheap. Then why don't you just exchange 1,000 exchange points for 100 million? That would cause space to distort. Thus the world would collapse. Luo Qingxun knit her brows and decided to ignore this unlikable system. She still had a total of 8,000 exchange points. If this was all she had, then she couldn't abuse it. But 1 million was far from enough. Host, how much do you want to exchange for? The system's noisy voice rang in her ears again, giving her the urge to beat it up. I want 1 million. Although it was far from enough, she wasn't too afraid with her ability in hand. The things she bought and the things she did with the money were all to protect her weak mother and blind brother. In another parallel universe, she completed what the original owner couldn't do for the person she didn't protect. Ding, 1,000 exchange points has been taken. Successfully exchanged for 1 million yuan. After the notification ended, the system sent another message. There is a bank card in your right pocket. The password is 542222. You're a 2. Every part of your body is a 2. Luo Qingxun directly bound her bank card with her mobile phone. After booking the hotel, she went to the largest shopping mall in a city. In fact, it was difficult for her to transport the supplies. This was not the same as the luxury of moving diamonds. She wanted to buy a lot of water, food, weapons for self-defense, and so on. There were too many things. Even if she could buy them in bulk, she wouldn't be able to carry them all back. Wait, she seemed to have forgotten something. Chapter 23:42. Space Creator. The system used these 5 words to enlighten her. As the name suggested, it should be the same as her portable space. But if it was that small, it was better not to have it. This was the previous host's second ability, but her body was too weak back then, and she couldn't open her portable space. Then when can I awaken it? The host can open the portable shopping center and obtain the Moonlight Box. You can immediately obtain the Space Creator's ability, can only be used in this world. Luo Qingxun knit her brows and quickly opened the portable shopping center. The last page did indeed have something called the Moonlight Box. Exchange points, 1,000 world. Apocalypse. This was a box that could only be used in the apocalypse. It didn't seem that high class at all. Let's exchange. She could accept this exchange point since she really needed this ability. If she didn't have a large portable space, she wouldn't have been able to collect that many items. Ding, 1,000 exchange points has been taken. Successfully exchanged for the Moonlight Box. The host has obtained the Space Creator's ability, and it has included an ability manual. This really was a considerate system. When a special external force entered one's body, it wasn't a very enjoyable thing. After a few minutes, before the apocalypse arrived, she was the first to awaken the Space Creator's ability and obtained a portable space. As expected, compared to the portable space she had worked so hard to obtain, the ability here was much stronger. Luo Qingshun looked at the time. It was 2 in the afternoon. She had checked the phone numbers of large trucks in advance and rented a truck. Since it was before the New Year's, there were many people in the shopping center, and there were many people buying New Year's goods. Luo Qingshun first went to the food area and used the identity of a large food factory to buy large amounts of food. She then hired someone to deliver it to the truck parked at the entrance of the shopping center. There were many things she needed to buy, so she divided the entire area into 3 large areas. Other than the necessary food and water, the other things in the food area were also very important. In order to avoid too many people's attention, she directly went to find the manager. You're saying that you need all the rice in the supermarket today? The manager was very surprised as he looked over Luo Qingshun. No matter how he looked at it, the other side looked like a student, so why would she buy all this rice? Yes. Luo Qingshun nodded and said, our company wants to take advantage of the end of the year to reopen a factory and also carry out a series of charity projects to help poor mountainous areas. So we need more. The main thing was that there was no time. Otherwise, she would have gone to the production area further away and bought a lot of supplies instead of going to the supermarket. I see. The manager nodded and said, that's not a problem. I'll go check the inventory. Do you want all kinds of rice? Yes. Luo Qingshun nodded and said, regardless of type. In addition to rice, Luo Qingshun also bought a lot of compressed biscuits and a lot of mineral water. At the beginning of the apocalypse, the water source was not completely polluted and most of the water was drinkable. However, at the later stages, most of the water was not drinkable. By then, a glass of water would cost as much as a 1-carat diamond ring. In fact, it was even more expensive. In order to avoid attracting too much attention, she moved on to the next location after the truck was full. Of course, when she drove the van away from the department store, the contents of the container began to decrease one by one. Chapter 2343. The same thing only took up 1 space. In other words, 300 tons of rice only used 1% of the portable space. In addition to this, she also bought paper towels, knives, blankets, pen and paper, as well as a large amount of candles and batteries. In the original owner's memory, there was no sun after the apocalypse. Even though it was daytime, it was still foggy and overcast, and visibility was extremely low. The development of zombies was very fast, and soon the world lost the electricity that they relied on for survival. At that time, the most primitive things would allow people to live. She didn't have much time. From north to south, she used the same method to go to more than 30 supermarkets to buy the materials she needed. Because the end of the year was approaching, it didn't attract any attention. In fact, she felt that she bought enough things, but it was still far from enough. The food the host bought is enough for you to eat for 3 lifetimes. The system's voice slowly sounded, making her knit her brows. But these things would expire. Won't. The time in the portable space is still space. It has nothing to do with the time of this world or any other plane. Nanny. Ha ha ha. Luo Qingshun couldn't help laughing 3 times. For her, this was indeed a very good news. Then, she wasn't too worried about the expiration date of the food. Stopping at the last department store, she began to buy some clothes and bags. Of course, it wasn't branded clothes or luxury bags, but good quality clothes and pants, as well as camouflage bags and hats. Although everyone was aware of the love for beauty, you can't stand in a group of zombies and still wear high heels and a small skirt. Of course, sometimes thoughts and actions weren't the same. She still bought a lot of beautiful skirts and nice shoes. But she didn't have high heels. Why did she buy them? Because in the original owner's world, she didn't have these things. Apocalypse. Since everything was about to turn over a new page, why not have a shining halo for once? After organizing her things, it was already very late. She called her mother and casually made up an excuse before heading to the five-star hotel she had booked. To be honest, even if she didn't have any abilities from this plane, she could definitely survive in the apocalypse with her own ability. But she was still worried about her weak mother and blind brother. These two people were at the bottom of the food chain in the normal world, not to mention the apocalypse. Protecting them was the difficult problem. After returning to the hotel and taking a shower, Luo Qingshan laid on the bed and began to organize the things she bought in the remaining space. During this time, she also discussed with the system. The content of the discussion was as follows. System, can't you help me calculate the items in my dimensional pocket like you did when you gave me the notification? If you don't give benefits, the system. Luo Qingshan looked at the space. It was a mess. There wasn't even a basic category. What benefits do you want? The system wants to eat the host bought. The host bought is, why would you want to eat the food? Then the host thinks the host. Looking at the system's shopping list and the host's portable space, it's like the difference between heaven and earth. Luo Qingshan gritted her teeth and angrily cursed her system. But she Luo. I'll give it all to you, all to you. Chapter 23:44. 300 Tonggong yams. Aren't you afraid of eating too much? The system likes Tonggong yams, but it can't be eaten, so it's not too much. Hand over goods. I'll give you the portable storage space. Correction. Secondary portable storage space. Okay. You're the boss. You have the final say. Luo Qingshan rolled her eyes at the system that didn't exist. She took out her phone and planned on calling her little brother. After all, the music academy he was in was a densely populated area. There was one more thing. The first hospital to fall was the one next to the music academy. Ding, 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 ding. A beautiful piano song sounded from the phone. It was Beethoven's Symphony, Luo Qingmian's favorite song. After about 20 seconds, Luo Qingmian picked up the phone. His voice was very nice. It was pure and clean with a hint of sadness. It was as if as long as she heard his voice, she would be able to picture him in her mind. Black hair, long eyelashes, white car jacket, clean canvas shoes, a pair of unfocused eyes, but they were so good-looking. Although Luo Qingshan could only picture him from her memory, she couldn't help but smile. Sis, a gentle voice came from the phone. It was simply smelling her face. That. Luo Qingshan cleared her throat and touched her ear in embarrassment. Mian. Take a day off tomorrow, and come find me. I have something to talk to you about. Go to school to find you? Luo Qingmian's voice was soft, but it was clear. In Luo Qingmian's world, the Business Empire Academy was an unreachable place. He looked up to his sister and wanted to be like her. But he knew he couldn't because he couldn't see. Thus, the Business Empire Academy became a place he couldn't go. No. Luo Qingshan shook her head. Come find me at the Westin Hotel. Room number is 00510. Hotel? Luo Qingmian's tone became nervous as she hurriedly asked, Sister, did something happen to you? I'll go find you now. No. Luo Qingshan immediately stopped him. If something happened to me, would I still be able to call you so leisurely? Then why are you in the hotel? Luo Qingmian furrowed her beautiful brows and said, Mom just said that you won't be coming back for the next 2 days because of school. Yes. Don't let Mom worry. Luo Qingshan pursed her lips and said, Come and find me tomorrow. Don't worry, walk slowly. Although she knew that the original owner's younger brother was a genius who was smart to the bone. Even if he was blind, it wouldn't stop him from going anywhere. However, he was her younger brother after all. As an elder sister, it was inevitable for her to give him some advice. All right, then wait for me, sis. Okay, be careful on the road. Before hanging up the phone, Luo Qingshan didn't forget to remind her baby brother again. Lying on the bed, he turned on his phone and looked at the balance of his bank card. Then, he couldn't help but sigh at how girls spent money at a speed comparable to robots. She still had 500,000 yuan left, and she still had a lot of things to buy. 50% of the food in the secondary portable space has been categorized for the host. Thank you, system. Luo Qingshun narrowed her eyes, and the Portable Spaces panel appeared in front of her. Chapter 2345. Luo Qingshun glanced at her phone. It was already 11 o'clock. She closed her eyes and planned to have a good sleep. After all, she wouldn't have many chances to have a good night's sleep 4 days later. She slept soundly without any dreams. Until morning, she was woken up by intermittent knocks on the door. When she opened her eyes, the room was pitch black. It was also pitch black outside the window. Luo Qingshun frowned and was shocked. Did the end of the world come early? What the hell? Did she really have a lot of things that she hadn't bought yet? As she entered a tense state, she didn't feel sleepy at all. She immediately picked up her phone and planned to run home. She didn't know that the moment she pressed the button, her legs stopped moving. Year 2250, December 28th, 4:10 a.m. God, who knocked on the door so early? Wasn't he afraid that she would sue him? Luo Qingshun frowned. She turned on the lights and opened the door. What's the matter so early? Before she could finish her sentence, Luo Qingshun was pulled into a warm embrace. It was a familiar scent mixed with the faint scent of mint soap. Mian Mian? Luo Qingshun was slightly stunned and asked tentatively. Although Luo Qingyan was her biological brother, this sudden hug still made her a little nervous. Her heart was pounding and her ears were slightly red. Oh, please. She couldn't be blamed, okay? Logically speaking, Luo Qingyan was just a beautiful young man that she had never seen before. Sis, are you okay? He panted slightly and said nervously, I couldn't sleep. I wanted to come over earlier. To him, there was no difference between day and night. Waiting in a world of eternal darkness was even more unbearable. Cough, cough. Luo Qingshun coughed lightly and said, I'm fine, but can we not hug so tightly? This kid didn't know how to control his strength. I'm sorry. Luo Qingyan let go of him gently and said, as long as you're fine, I've been anxious these past few days. I feel like something is going to happen. If someone had said such things to Luo Qingshun, she would not have cared. But before the apocalypse, Luo Qingyan's words to her made it hard for her to ignore it. Could it be that the original owner's younger brother would also become a psychic in the future? Just because he hadn't awakened his superpower, he had already become a ghost in the mouth of zombies? I didn't expect my brother to have a sixth sense. Luo Qingshun chuckled, took his hand, and led him to the sofa. Luo Qingyan slowly sat down and nodded slightly. Even though her clear eyes were unfocused, they were still beautiful. He frowned and said, it's not a sixth sense, but I can always see some strange scenes. See? Luo Qingshun raised her hand and waved it in front of his face. She didn't feel any reaction from him. Sis, did you wave your hand in front of me? Luo Qingshun was startled. She blinked her eyes and said, you can't be able to see it all the time, right? Ha! The next second, Luo Qingyan revealed a sunny smile and said, there was wind when you waved it. Okay. Luo Qingshun nodded slightly and then said, then why can you see strange scenes? What kind of scenes? Can you describe them? Chapter 2346. It had to be said that Luo Qingyan's so-called seeing really scared her. Wasn't this something that would happen in the future? Luo Qingyan could actually see the apocalypse before it even happened. Other than this, did you see anything else? Luo Qingshun slightly frowned and gave him 2 pieces of tissue and a cup of hot water. His face didn't look good, as if watching those scenes was torture for him. It's very blurry. Luo Qingyan took a deep breath. I seem to be able to hear a lot of shrill cries. Luo Qingshun saw that his forehead was covered in sweat and quickly said, don't think about it. Sis, am I sick? Luo Qingyan frowned. Don't tell Mom. I don't want her to worry. Luo Qingshun rolled her eyes at him. Don't worry. You're definitely not sick. She was very sure that if it wasn't for the Bai family, Luo Qingyan would be a psychic in the apocalypse. Even if he was blind, he would be a blind person with a strong psychic ability. So why did you ask me to take the day off and come here? Luo Qingyan drank 2 mouthfuls of water and calmed down. Luo Qingshun looked at her phone. It was still 5 o'clock. She rubbed her temples. Before we talk, let's get some sleep. At 8 o'clock in the morning, she was woken up again. It wasn't an alarm, but a fragrant breakfast. Sis, I bought your favorite cheese steam bun. Luo Qingyan carefully placed the fruit juice and steam bun on her bed. Actually, I have a concert at school today. If you don't have anything else, I'll go back to school first. Go back to school. She was originally in a daze, but when she heard those words, she immediately woke up. She drank a few mouthfuls of fruit juice and looked at Luo Qingyan. Mian Mian. Although there's something you might not believe, I'll tell you the truth. Luo Qingyan froze and suddenly became quiet. She looked at her and said, Sis, you have a boyfriend? At that moment, he suddenly felt like his sister who always loved him was being snatched away. His heart didn't feel good. Was this how her younger brother thought these days? Moreover, even if she had a boyfriend, was it so unbelievable? Of course not. She directly denied it and said, If I told you that the strange scene you just described was real, would you believe me? Really, what do you mean? Luo Qingyan frowned and said, But the scene I saw and the scene I saw were two different worlds. It looked like an apocalyptic hell. You're right. Luo Qingyan took a deep breath and said, The end is coming. For the next half an hour, Luo Qingyan used a bold and imaginative way to describe what would happen in the next few days. Luo Qingyan listened attentively the entire time. Even though he would frown from time to time, Luo Qingyan knew that he was completely convinced by her imaginative words. As expected of her brother, he had brains. So what do you plan to do? Luo Qingyan sighed. Will I become a burden to you? So what he saw was something that was about to happen. It turned out that those bloody and cruel scenes were all real. Chapter 23:47. In fact, he had known for a long time that he had a special sixth sense. When he was young, there was a scene where a flower pot hit Xiao Ming, and a few days later, Xiao Ming's head was smashed by the flower pot. For example, there was a scene where someone confessed to his sister, but his sister rejected him. If these images that symbolize premonition only appeared once or twice, he definitely wouldn't find it strange. However, when they appeared again and came true one after another, he slowly began to believe that this was one of his abilities. But he couldn't tell anyone about this ability. It wasn't that he didn't have friends, but it was meaningless to say it. In other people's eyes, it was just a fantasy story. But today, his sister actually acknowledged his ability. How inconceivable was that? But what was the use of having abilities? He saw the end of the world before anyone else. Killing, blood, selfishness, calculation, conspiracy. The bad nature of human nature was completely exposed in the end of the world. Most people, for their own lives, completely collapsed all of their morals. How terrifying. You were never a burden. Luo Qingyan looked at his beautiful face and said, You are big sister's favorite little brother. Sister? Luo Qingyan opened his mouth slightly, his voice trembling. Luo Qingyan waved his hand and said, Let's not talk too much. Time is tight. Let's do things separately. What can I do? Use all means to bring Mom to the hotel. Luo Qingyan handed him one of the room cards and said, Then you two wait for me at the hotel. The Westin Hotel was the best hotel in a city, and it was located in the Noble District. If she remembered correctly, this hotel was a safe zone after the virus outbreak. As long as they were guests, they had the right to stay in the hotel during the end of the world. Although the entire A city could fall in the end of the world, at least in the beginning, this hotel was safe. Sister, where are you going? Luo Qingyan was nervous and reached out his hand, but Luo Qingyan patted it lightly and said, Your sister is going to buy some things. I'll go with you. Why do you want to be my burden before the end of the world? I don't. Go pick up Mom. We'll keep in touch. Don't worry. It's still the normal world. It's very safe. Okay. Coming out of the hotel, Luo Qingyan's first stop was a pharmacy, a big one. In the post-apocalyptic world, other than food and water, medicine was also extremely scarce. Gauze, cotton swabs, disinfectant, fever medicine, etc. She had to prepare every type of medicine, even the injections. God had given her 4 days. If she didn't know how to cherish it, then she deserved to be unable to protect those who needed to be protected. Due to the strict supervision of drugs, she could only buy a limited amount. Of course, this was limited to one pharmacy, but it didn't mean that she couldn't go to a few more. Every time she came out of pharmacy and put the medicine into her big bag, she would hear a notification from the system. Ding, more than 60 kinds of medicine have been taken. I suddenly feel that exchanging 300 tong gongmai for a system is worth it. By noon, she had already gone to more than 60 pharmacies to buy medicine. In fact, her speed was already very fast, but there were still a few types of medicine that she needed to buy. Chapter 2348. She didn't have time to think too much. After hastily eating her lunch, she planned to go to the Western Pharmacy. These pharmacies were all close to the pharmaceutical factory. She should be able to buy the medicine she wanted. Kongjin Pharmacy door. Because the location was relatively remote, there were very few people coming and going. Luo Qingshun pushed open the door and could feel the warmth of the air-conditioned room. It really was a beautiful world. Unfortunately, very soon, this beautiful world would no longer exist. "Hello, miss. How can I help you?" The waitress came up and asked with a smile. Luo Qingshun nodded and said, "Hello, I need a few types of medicine. Can you help me get them?" "Okay. Please say Valium, aspirin, soothing, ranitidine, berberine, metronidazole, Yunnan Baiyao, hydrogen peroxide." Miss Luo Qingshun hadn't finished speaking when the waitress interrupted her. She only saw her point to a man wearing a dark trench coat not far away and said, "The medicine you asked for. This gentleman just bought them all." "Bought them all?" Luo Qingshun froze for a moment and looked at the man standing not far away. He was wearing a black trench coat with his hands in his pockets. He was wearing a mask and a hat, so his face couldn't be seen clearly. However, she felt that he was strangely familiar. "Yes, we will stock up on these medicines next Monday. Miss, if you need any, you can tell us and leave your phone number. When the medicine arrives, I'll call you." "Next Monday?" Luo Qingshun coldly laughed and said, "I'm afraid I won't have the life to come here." When she said this, her eyes weren't looking at the waitress but at the man in the trench coat. His back slightly stiffened, but he didn't turn around. "Miss, you're too serious. If you're really in a hurry, why don't you go to the pharmacies in front and ask?" The waitress smiled and said, "These medicines are all very common medicines. Under normal circumstances, there won't be a shortage." "That's under normal circumstances," Luo Qingshun softly muttered. Then she looked at the waitress and smiled. "No problem. Thank you. I'll go ask the pharmacy in front." As soon as she finished speaking, she put her hands in the pockets of her coat and walked towards the other door. Actually, she could have left from where she came in, but she wanted a chance to brush past the man in the trench coat. Perhaps it couldn't be considered as brushing shoulders. At most, it could be considered as walking behind him. However, that was enough, because she already knew who he was. Although he had wrapped himself up tightly, there was an ancient black mark behind his ear that wouldn't lie. Qian Sinai, her great male lead. It seemed that she had to reevaluate this person. What mushroom-headed glasses guy? That was probably not his true self. There was a more important point. On the third day of the apocalypse, he came to such a remote pharmacy to buy so many essential medicines. Could it prove that he also knew that something was going to happen? Could it be he knew that the end of the world was coming? As she walked into the next pharmacy, her mind raced. If Qian Sinai knew that the apocalypse was coming, he might have known earlier than her, so he must have made more preparations than her. Right now, she had less than 300,000 yuan left, and she still needed a lot of things. Chapter 2349. At 2:30 in the afternoon, Luo Qingshun finally ran through half of a city and bought the medicine she wanted. Although it wasn't much, it was better than nothing. Adding in the storage effect of her portable space, she bought quite a bit. Coming out of the pharmacy, she stuffed her bag full of things, and the system began to secretly recycle it. Ding! More than 10 kinds of medicine have been collected. Secondary storage space. When the system was done, Luo Qingshun's bulging bag was flattened. Right at this moment, a voice that was as cold as water called out to her. It wasn't just a normal call. It even called out her full name. Luo Qingshun. She knew who was calling her the moment she stopped. The winter wind gently blew and the faint sunlight shined down, gradually lengthening the shadow. 3 seconds later, she slowly turned around with her hands in her pockets. narrowing her eyes as she looked at the man in the trench coat. This was her first time seriously looking into his eyes. They were as deep as ink and as deep as the sea. It was like if she looked at them a few more times, she would fall in deeply. Unhumph. She looked up and her lips curled into a faint smile. What do you want? Classmate Chien Sinai. The other side was clearly stunned as a look of disbelief appeared in his eyes. How is this possible? Although the girl in front of him was his classmate, they had never met before. Adding in the fact that he had always been in disguise at school, his current appearance was completely different from before, so how could she recognize him with a single glance? He wanted to speak, but he was cut off by Luo Qingchen. Since we've exchanged names, how about we get to the point? Luo Qingchen looked at him with sparkling eyes. After all, there isn't much time left. Chien Sinai narrowed his deep eyes as he softly said, What do you want to say? How about we make a deal? Luo Qingchen seriously looked up at Chien Sinai standing in front of her. What do you want? Chien Sinai coldly replied, I want a car, an off-road vehicle, preferably bulletproof. She blinked her clear eyes, thought for a moment, and said, I also want cash. The more the better. Student Luo wants a lot. Chien Sinai narrowed his cold eyes, but his lips curled into a meaningful smile. He looked at him and said, I wonder what you'll give me in exchange. It had to be said that even though he was wearing a hat and a mask, Luo Qingchen could still feel his imposing manner. It was as if he had his own aura just by standing there. He was definitely different from the rest. Luo Qingchen bit her lips. In fact, she felt inexplicably uncertain. After all, what kind of status did the other party have? What kind of abilities did he have? Why did he know that the apocalypse was coming? She didn't know anything about this youth named Chien Sinai. Since he didn't know, he naturally didn't know what the other party needed. Then, it would be very difficult to complete the transaction. But she really needed a car. She took a deep breath and continued, Student Chien will definitely be interested in the things that I can exchange for. For example? Luo Qingchen hesitated a bit before raising a brow. I can keep things for you. Without knowing why, it was clearly a very good ability, but when she said it like this, it seemed very low. Chapter 2350. If it was said that Luo Qingchen wasn't certain that Chien Sinai knew that the apocalypse was coming in the beginning, she was certain when he said this. Only, this person's tone really wasn't pleasing to the ears. So classmate Chien Sinai called my name because he thought it was fun? Luo Qingchen knit her brows in an angry manner. Since you don't want to make a deal, let's not waste each other's time. As soon as her voice fell, Luo Qingchen angrily turned to leave. But she didn't know that there was a system prompt in her ears. Ding! Affection has increased by 10. Mission completion rate is now 10%. So her great male lead liked to be treated like this. After the prompt ended, there was a faint, anxious voice that came from Chien Sinai behind her. All right, I promise you, we'll make a deal. His voice was very good, just like the sound of a cello being played in a cold spring. It was very special. Luo Qingchen stopped, and her lips curled into a smile that was hard to hide. Without knowing why, she felt like Jiang Taigong was fishing and those who were willing to take the bait. She indeed didn't know anything about Chien Sinai, but that didn't mean she couldn't use her own method to leave a special impression in the other side's mind. The host clearly hit the jackpot. Shut up. After Luo Qingchen retorted to the system, she took a deep breath and relaxed the muscles on her face. She revealed a polite smile and turned to say, So, what does classmate Chien want to take from me? Since it was a deal, it was better to be clear. After all, she didn't have any feelings with Chien Sinai right now. Not to mention love, they didn't even have friendship yet. So, it wasn't realistic to take benefits from him for free. I haven't thought about it yet. Chien Sinai's deep eyes had a faint sparkle as he looked at her. But before I think about it, at least in the near future, I hope that we won't be enemies. Deal. Luo Qingchen didn't explain any further and directly agreed to Chien Sinai's conditions. Because she knew that no matter what happened in the future, it was impossible for her and Chien Sinai to be enemies. Other than the car, I think you need something else. Chien Sinai narrowed his eyes as his lips curled into a faint smile. He had to admit that he admired this girl who was 2 meters away from him. They were classmates, but before yesterday, he had never paid attention to this person. Of course, this person had never noticed her, because in the Business Empire Academy, he was definitely an inconspicuous and insignificant person. The more a person's identity, the more they learn to hide themselves. A black Maserati slowly drove over from the private underground garage. S is right. S-A-T-S. S-S-S. A's a T-S-S-T-T-S. He stood rooted to the ground and didn't open the car door for a long time. At this moment, the car window slowly rolled down. The sunlight shined through the window and fell onto Qian Xinai's face. His chiseled face, exquisite facial features, fair skin, beautiful eyes, and those thin lips. This perfect visual experience was reflected in her eyes. This Qian Xinai really looked good. Chapter 23:51. Get in the car. He saw that she didn't move for a while, and when he looked over, he met her beautiful eyes. Perhaps the angle of the sun was just right, but it fell onto her beautiful face. At that moment, he was a bit stunned, and even his heart couldn't help slightly speeding up. Ding! Affection has increased by 10. Mission completion rate is now 20%. The system notification pulled her back to reality from her thoughts that had drifted to outer space. The two pairs of eyes looked at each other, and there was an indescribable sense of nervousness and panic in them. Qian Xinai looked at her face and felt like his thoughts had been discovered. This feeling was very bad, and he couldn't think normally. Several years later, Qian Xinai looked at her and said, "Get in the car first. The sun is very strong, don't get sunburned." After saying this, he had an urge to wildly step on the gas pedal. He really couldn't understand what kind of nonsense he was talking about. It was December in the middle of winter. Moreover, it was 3 days before the apocalypse. Although the sun was very strong, it was impossible for people to get sunburned. Luo Qingchun was stunned before she said with a smile of understanding, Right. You saw how anxious I was. I forgot to wear sunscreen. Clothes." Actually, she didn't know what she was saying. The moment her voice fell, her expression instantly returned to a serious look, intending to cover up the nonsense she had just spouted. She quickly left the car and sat in the front passenger seat, fastening her seatbelt. Then she cleared her throat and said, "Classmate Qian, let's set off." Qian Xinai looked at her, and his beautiful eyes slightly narrowed as his heart strangely skipped a beat. He didn't expect her to follow his nervous ramblings and talk nonsense with him. There was a special tacit understanding that was fermenting between the two of them bit by bit. The Maserati stopped in front of a villa, and Luo Qingchun slightly knit her brows. She felt that the place Qian Xinai brought her to had an inexplicable sacred feeling, as well as an inexplicable strange feeling. The two didn't conflict because the style of the villa was very strange. The dark blue exterior had a mysterious aura to it. "Young master." An old man came forward and took the car keys from his hand. "Old master is waiting for you in the study." "Yes, got it." Qian Xinai looked at Luo Qingchun and said to her in an advising tone, "Grandfather's personality is different from normal people. You don't have to speak when you see him later." Luo Qingchun gave a slight nod before nodding. She naturally never thought that Qian Xinai would bring her to his home, and she wanted to see his parents. Wasn't this a bit too fast? Could it be that the apocalypse hadn't arrived yet, and she had already captured the male lead's heart with her beauty? "Host, can you wake up? How are you going to capture 20% favorability points? Can you shut up?" She had to admit that ever since the system took over her secondary dimensional pocket, it had become very active. Although she knew that Qian Xinai was at most exploring her and didn't like her at all. But couldn't he be a little narcissistic once in a while? The inside of the villa was very different from the outside. The bright and warm lights always made people feel more secure. Luo Qingchun followed behind Qian Xinai without saying a word. She didn't know why he wanted to bring her home. This so-called grandfather of his must be a very powerful person. Chapter 23:52. In a study on the second floor, the light suddenly changed from a warm color to a cold color. Qian Sinai knocked on the door and said, "Grandfather, I'm back." "Kacha." The door opened automatically, and Qian Ciz's deep voice came from inside. "Welcome, young Miss Luo. It really is an honor." It was clearly a welcoming sentence, but she felt her heart skip a beat as it jumped into her throat. She was very clear that she was nervous. This unknown person not only knew that the apocalypse was coming, he even knew her name. On the way here, Qian Sinai didn't contact anyone. In other words, it was impossible for Qian Sinai to tell his grandfather her name. Moreover, his slightly knit brows and slightly stunned eyes were enough to prove that he was also very surprised. "Grandfather, perhaps I shouldn't call you young Miss Luo. Rather, I should call you a space ability user." When Qian Cizi said this, Luo Qingqian's brows knit even tighter. Obtaining abilities before the apocalypse came from the system's help. This help had nothing to do with this world. But Qian Sinai's grandfather actually knew that she had awakened an ability. "Grandfather, I feel that she can become our ally." Qian Sinai walked into the room, and his right hand signaled for Luo Qingqian not to come in for now. He was filled with respect and admiration towards his grandfather, because this elder was strong enough. The last constellation master of the Qian family, Qian Cizi. "Don't be nervous." His voice was as calm as a pool of stagnant water as he slowly said, "Young Miss Luo has such a strong ability. Naturally, we can become allies. This old man's feet aren't very convenient. Please come in." This was Luo Qingqian's first time seeing Qian Cizi. His study was made of countless galaxies. The distance between the stars and the various constellations were directly connected to each other. It was beautiful beyond compare. It was like closing one's eyes and suddenly opening them. One would feel like they were in the vast universe. For the next half an hour, Qian Cizi simply told her about the mission of the Qian family and the world after the apocalypse. Although it was a simple summary, compared to what Qian Sinai had told her, it was much more. The Qian family originated 600 years ago. They specialized in studying the changes in the size of celestial bodies, the distance between stars, the lifespan of celestial bodies, and so on. They were able to infer the occurrence of a disaster through the changes in these things. For example, the arrival of the end of the world. A year ago, Qian Swansea discovered that the two asteroids parallel to the celestial body they lived on began to shrink. In other words, the quality had changed. At that time, he had already predicted that something big would happen in this world. It wasn't until 3 months ago that he finally confirmed the world where the apocalypse had arrived. December 31st, 2250. But even if it was 3 months earlier, he knew that there was still nothing he could do. He could only try his best to collect resources and save more people after the apocalypse. Since he didn't know which city the humans would protect in the end, he could only secretly set up resource centers in the major cities of each province in case of emergencies. Qian Swazi naturally knew that after the apocalypse, there would be many superpowered people. But what he didn't expect was that there would be a paranormal who had awakened her ability before the apocalypse. Moreover, it was one of the rare arcanas, Space Creator. Chapter 2353. After meeting Luo Swansea, Luo Qingqian could be considered an alliance with Qian Sinai's family. Calling it an alliance was a bit exaggerated. At most, it was an apocalypse partner. Towards this apocalypse partner, Qian Sinai was very friendly. Qian Sinai brought her to the Qian family security base and let her choose a suitable weapon. Swiss Army knives, gas bottles, wireless headphones, etc. All kinds of things that could only be seen in military bases were here. "You can take anything you want." Qian Sinai slightly raised his brows as his lips curled into a faint smile. "After you're done, I'll drive you to the wholesale market." "Wholesale market?" Luo Qingqian's clear eyes trembled slightly. "Do you have anything else you need to buy?" Luo Qingqian thought that Qian Sinai had already spent 3 months preparing. How could he still not be prepared? "I've already bought most of my things." He calmly looked at her and said, "But the things you bought from the supermarket are far from enough." Actually, he had already noticed her that day in the classroom. That confident smile was like a god's point of view, looking at those ignorant people. He immediately thought that she was different from others, and that she might even know that the apocalypse was coming. He secretly sent people to follow her and found that she wasn't going to school. Rather, she was going back and forth between the major supermarkets. Every time the truck was filled, it would head to another location. However, what surprised her the most was that when she drove the truck to the next destination and opened the back door of the container, it was empty. In fact, he had already purchased most of the medicines, but on that day, he had bought all the emergency medicines he needed. It was to wait for the chance meeting near the factory. That's right, it wasn't an accidental meeting, but rather a meeting with a purpose. Of course, Luo Qingshun didn't know this. Ding! Walking out of the innermost room, Luo Qingshun didn't take much, but she also didn't take little. Actually, if it wasn't for the apocalypse, she would be embarrassed to take so many things on her first visit. But the situation was urgent, and they had already traded. She didn't need to be polite. Host, you're thinking as if the male lead has already received benefits from you. Why are you so talkative in this dimension? Are you suffering from pre-apocalyptic excitement syndrome? The system poked its non-existent finger and stopped talking. What did you take? Qian Sinai saw him come out empty-handed, and his brows twitched. There was a faint glow in his cold eyes as he said, "It seems like classmate Luo owes me more and more." Classmate Qian, why do you always say you owe me? Luo Qingshun looked into his eyes, cleared her throat, and said, "When the doomsday bell rings, you will naturally need my help." The Space Creator ability was definitely an SSS-level rare ability. There were not many abilities of the same level as it. Student Luo, are you sure you can give me as much in the future as I give you now? Qian Sinai's beautiful eyes had a faint gentleness to them. It clearly didn't sound pleasing to the ears, but when it came from his mouth, it felt like their comrade in arms had taken a step closer. Chapter 2354. Qian Sinai was stunned. Naturally, he never thought that Luo Qingshun would say something like this. It sounded like a very irresponsible sentence, but he felt that it was inexplicably cute. Ding! Affection has increased by 10. Mission completion rate is now 30%. Silently increasing the affection, Luo Qingshun was secretly happy in her heart. Could it be that Qian Sinai was really afraid that she would run away? Ha 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 ha. Thinking of this, she didn't know why she felt very happy. Classmate Luo, your current actions can be described with an idiom. Qian Sinai narrowed his eyes as he revealed a faint smile. What is it? Burning the bridge after crossing the river. As soon as his voice fell, he turned around and left his back to her. Perhaps she didn't know that Qian Sinai, who had always been indifferent, would reveal a smile that was hard to hide at this moment. He admired it very much. He admired the girl in front of him. It wasn't because of the special abilities she had awakened, but because of her proud smile. It was like a faint ray of light that shone into his heart, which had been as calm as water for a long time. Little by little, shallow ripples appeared. Sitting in the front passenger seat of Qian Sinai's Maserati, she enjoyed the sea breeze by the river. He had brought her to many large supply points to collect supplies, so having connections was very good. The things he collected in minutes were more than the time she spent before. Luo Qingshun was very satisfied with Qian Sinai's generous actions. I've really troubled you today. She held her chin with one hand as she leaned against the window, looking at Qian Sinai with a faint gaze. He really looked good, with white skin and a clear outline, especially his side profile. Under the faint moonlight, she could see his long and dense eyelashes, looking very handsome. It's fine. I've already remembered it. Qian Sinai turned the steering wheel as he narrowed his eyes. The night was a bit dark, and she couldn't see Qian Sinai's face clearly, but there should be a unique arrogance in his gentleness. Although she was very speechless at the words he said. Classmate Qian doesn't seem like a person who cares about this. I am that kind of person. Qian Sinai stopped the car in front of the hotel and turned to look at her. You have to know that in the apocalypse, not caring is equal to dying quickly. His eyes were very serious, like he was using another method to tell her what to do. At this moment, she looked into his ink-black eyes and unconsciously nodded. Qian Sinai looked at her as his clear eyes sparkled. Her obedient appearance made him unconsciously raise his hand and softly put it on her head. Good. Ding. Affection has increased by 10. Mission completion rate is now 40%. In that instant, the air around them seemed to have frozen. The bright moonlight shone through the car window and onto their bodies. Their eyes met, and they looked at each other. Without knowing how long passed, Nai came back to his senses first. He quickly pulled back his hand and put it in his pocket as his face turned a bit red. Luo Chen's eyes trembled as she sat up. Her right hand touched her ear out of habit in this awkward situation. There seemed to be a pink atmosphere unfolding around them in the early days of the apocalypse. Aye. All right. Bye-bye. When she opened the door, he grabbed her hand and said, I'll pick you up on December 31st. Let's go to the safety base first. Chapter 2355. December 31st, 2250, 8 a.m., 8 degrees Celsius. Although it was winter, the weather wasn't that cold. Luo Qingshun checked her secondary portable space one last time. There were still 300 units inside. Once the world entered the end of the world, there would be very few useful resources. Other than the limited resources, the only thing left to snatch was the nuclear energy of the zombies and superpowered people. Sister, where are we going next? Luo Qingyan crossed her arms and slightly pursed her lips. She looked nervous. Not far away, Luo Mu said, What's going on with you two? What's going on? Why aren't you going to class? Her tone wasn't very good, but she could understand. After all, she was a woman who raised 2 children alone. Plus, what happened with the Bai family recently. She was very anxious. After all, she had a newborn son who was still in the Bai family. Maybe he would always be there. Miss Lin Xiuwan. Luo Qingchun closed her eyes and called the previous host's mother by her full name. In the past 2 days, she had explained everything that she needed to. She had also explained everything that she could. Although she didn't tell her mother about the end of the world, she told her that the world was about to be reshuffled. Whether it was the rich or the poor, it was possible to be reshuffled. Even so, her mother still didn't understand what the two of them were doing. Sister, Qing, why are you talking to Mom like that? Lin Xiujuan looked at her with surprise. Luo Qingshun took a deep breath and looked at her without a trace of emotion. The reason why our family was bullied by the Bai family, other than their own bad behavior, you are also at fault. Lin Xiujuan looked at her and felt that her daughter was very different today. She felt like a different person. Qing, what do you want to say? I already told you that the world is about to change. Luo Qingshun looked up and said coldly, the Bai family may not be able to survive. You don't have to be too entangled, and I won't bite the hand that feeds me, but it's impossible for me to repay evil with good. Probably because her voice was too cold, Lin Xiujuan, who had been nagging, didn't say a word. 12 o'clock at noon. In fact, if one were to observe carefully, they would notice that the sun at noon was very different from usual. The sun that could not be looked at for long periods of time could now be looked at directly, and the appearance of the sun itself had also changed. The golden light in the outer circle dimmed bit by bit. Luo Qingshan went downstairs to buy takeout for her mother and brother. The dishes were very sumptuous because after tonight, these delicacies would stay in their memories forever. Didi, her phone rang, and Luo Qingshan looked down to see a text from Qian Xinai. Why haven't they come to the safety zone yet? Luo Qingshan thought for a moment and quickly typed a line of words. I'll stay in the hotel for the time being. I'm worried if my brother doesn't see me. She always felt that although Qian Swanzi's grandfather was powerful, he was a little strange. At first, she didn't think it was that strange. Setting up safety centers and storage points in various cities was to allow more people to survive. But on the way back, there was one thing she couldn't figure out. Since Qian Swazi was so smart and had so many connections, why didn't he inform the government's top officials 3 days after the outbreak of the epidemic to quarantine everyone who had been drenched in the rain? Chapter 2356. In her memories, the apocalypse spread very quickly. Although she didn't know when City A had fallen, she was certain that it had. She had never heard of anyone standing up and becoming the leader of the zombie resistance. There were only doctors who wanted to study zombies and power users. In another world, where did Qian Suzy go? If he was here, the virus wouldn't have spread this quickly. Minus 11 p.m. The entire A city was filled with joy as each family prepared for New Year's. Only Luo Qingshun was holding a black umbrella and holding a glass full of red wine as she stood on the rooftop of the hotel. Qian Sinai had sent her 3 messages, but she didn't reply. His phone didn't pick up either. Grandpa can protect your little brother. Qian Sinai, actually, I'm not sure what my power is. If I'm not a power user, Qian Sinai, for the last message, he would always delete it, and write it again. That sentence, I can't protect you, he never sent it in the end. I can only stay in the safe house for now. Are you really not coming? Qian Sinai, this was his first time being so concerned about someone. He was a bit worried. She didn't seem that beautiful, but he could remember her deeply in his mind with a single glance, unable to forget her for a long time. When the apocalypse was about to arrive, he suddenly felt a bit flustered. His grandfather didn't know if he was a power user or not, so he could only prepare for the worst. If it wasn't, he definitely couldn't be drenched in the red rain or be bitten by zombies. Normal people bitten by zombies would turn into zombies in a minute to 10 hours. Only power users weren't afraid of being bitten by zombies. So he couldn't go out, but he couldn't help feeling worried. Very worried. Even if the other side was a space creator, he was still worried. Although the First Order zombies weren't that strong, they were several times stronger than normal people. If Luo Qingshun didn't awaken any power other than the space creator, she would still be in danger. The only difference between normal people and the apocalypse was having a moving warehouse. Furthermore, she had a mother and a blind brother. Luo Qingshun didn't reply because 1. She was still thinking about Qian Xuanzi. 2. Because after being reborn, she wanted to experience the world that the previous host was filled with regret. She was determined to rewrite such a tragic ending. 11:59, 50 p.m. She was standing on the opposite side of the Century Square. A black mass of people waved light sticks in their hands, waiting for the new year to arrive and for the bell to ring. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2. A loud countdown came from not far away, accompanied by laughter and uplifting music. The sky was filled with dazzling fireworks, and the dark sky was instantly dyed red. Dong, dong, dong. Until the time on the big screen jumped from December 31st, 2250 to January 1st, 2251, a wave of cheers rang out. Tick-tock, tick-tock, tick-tock. A few drops of rain fell on her black umbrella, and the moon in the sky gradually turned red. Chapter 23:57. That night, it rained all night, and the air was filled with the smell of chemicals mixed together. The New Year's Eve became a hellish dinner party. That morning, the sun didn't rise again. When Luo Qingshun came to the top floor of the hotel, the screen that was originally showing her countdown had changed to economic news. Breaking news. The global temperature rose rapidly yesterday. The red rain continued. The relevant departments have started to actively respond. Major hospitals issued an emergency notice. Many people with high fever continue to stay in the hospital. The red rain is suspected to be contaminated by chemicals from heavy industry. There are many rumors this morning. Some say the ozone layer is damaged. Some say the greenhouse effect has reached a critical point. Some even say the end of the world is coming. Stop the rumors. If anyone continues to spread rumors, they will be punished by the law. In a few hours, many people will go to the supermarket to buy food. The country urges the public to pay attention to safety. Don't panic. The news changed between the TV stations. Some people seemed to be aware of the danger, and some people were still enjoying the last prosperity of the world. In a few hours, the people with high fever in the hospital would turn into zombies. After all, everyone had seen movies about zombies. This kind of weather easily made people think of the end of the world. People who could go to the supermarket to buy food were considered smart. In the end of the world, being smart would give you more chances to live. Back in the hotel room, Luo Qingshun was carrying a bag of food, ready to give it to her mother and brother. She didn't know that when she opened the door, only her mother was there. She didn't see her brother. "Where's Qingyan?" Luo Qingqian's eyes trembled. There was panic in her eyes. Although the rain had stopped, the red rain on the ground carried the virus. She didn't know whether Luo Qingyan was psychic or not. If he wasn't, once he got infected with the virus, he might turn into a zombie, like in her previous life. Qing, you finally came back. Mom was worried sick. Lin Xiaozhuan nervously grabbed her hand and said, Qingyan seemed to have received a call from a classmate, asking him to go to the hospital to help. He went to the hospital? Luo Qingchun almost called out in shock as her hands couldn't help trembling. Damn it! What was her brother doing? Yes, it seems like their school bell was drenched in the rain yesterday and called a few friends. Before Lin Xiaozhuan's voice fell, Luo Qingchun picked up an umbrella and interrupted her. Mom, listen to me. From now on, live for yourself. No matter who calls you and asks you to go out, do not go out. The apocalypse is coming. I didn't tell you before because I was afraid you wouldn't believe me. She frowned and pulled the floor-to-ceiling window to the side with her left hand. The strange dark red sky instantly came into view. Lin Xiaozhuan was stunned for a moment. Luo Qingchun didn't give her any time to react and continued. Now, I think you should believe me. Doomsday. Doomsday. Please stay here and wait for me to bring my brother back. Luo Qingchun pointed to the big bag on the table and said, If you're hungry, eat the things in the bag first. Don't wander around. Lin Xiaozhuan looked at Luo Qingchun and felt that she had changed. Chapter 2358. Walking out of the hotel, although the sky was a bit cooler, it was still dark red. The hotel had set up a cordon. Since this morning, this hotel only allowed people to enter and not leave. Her memory was not wrong. This was a safe place for a short period of time. Walking through a small path, she reached the main road. Sounds of car horns instantly entered her ears. Luo Qingchun narrowed her eyes and put on the hood of her windbreaker. Although she bought a lot of nice clothes before this, she had changed into lighter clothes last night to welcome the apocalypse. After all, things like skirts were not suitable for fighting. Along the way, she was a bit anxious. It was not because of the apocalypse, but because of her mother and brother. In fact, her mother was a very good person. Whether it was her or Luo Qingyan, she did her best to take care of her, but there was one thing that was particularly bad about her. That was, she was very tolerant towards the Bai family. She did not know what drug Bai Dashan gave her to make her accommodate them and tolerate them so much. As for her younger brother, she clearly told him that the apocalypse was coming. Luo Qingyan was different from her mother. He completely knew that the apocalypse was coming. So what kind of important person could make him go out without hesitation when he knew that it was so dangerous outside? Moreover, he was a blind man. There was no way to take a car. Fortunately, the hospital was not far from the hotel. Luo Qingchun walked quickly to the hospital. I'm here, where are you? She dialed Luo Qingyan's phone again. Sister, didn't I tell you not to come over? Luo Qingyan's tone was a bit worried. Her thin lips lightly said, After I'm done here, I can go back to the hotel by myself. Luo Qingyan, tell me, where are you? She felt that she could not suppress the anger in her heart. Luo Qingyan on the other side of the phone paused for a moment and said, I'm on the third floor in room 1021. The next second, the phone was hung up. Luo Qingchun looked at the phone. There was not much time left. The first batch of zombies was about to appear. He walked quickly to room 1021. There were many boys gathered at the door. Luo Qingyan stood not far away, holding her phone tightly. Her ears twitched slightly. He seemed to hear Luo Qingchun's familiar footsteps as he slowly said, Sister. Luo Qingchun squints her eyes and looks around. This is a VIP ward. The person sitting on the bed is the joke of the music academy, Xiaoruan. She had snow-white skin, long wavy hair, a beautiful face, and exquisite makeup. There were 5 boys around her. In the original owner's memory, these 5 people were all his little brother's good friends. Ruan had a fever this morning. When I heard her call me, I rushed over. One of the boys said, We agreed on a fair competition. I meant what I said. Xiaoruan's expression did not change at all. Instead, he pursed his lips and coughed lightly. I'm fine. You guys can go back first. Although her tone was very soft and she looked very weak, Luo Qingchun could feel the pride in her eyes. She should enjoy the feeling of being surrounded by boys. Eyes don't lie. Luo Qingchun was very sure that her thoughts were correct. But when she heard Luo Qingmian call her sister, her expression changed slightly. Chapter 23:59. Luo Qingchun softly nodded and walked to Luo Qingmian's side. I'll take you back. Mom is very worried about you. She didn't look at Xia Ruan sitting on the bed, but gave a slight nod to the other four boys as a sign of courtesy. The sudden appearance of a beautiful girl made the eyes of the four boys light up. Actually, they had never met before, but the previous host had seen a picture of the five of them in an album. Therefore, she remembered what the four of them looked like. Are you Qingmian's older sister? One of the boys asked. A great beauty. Another boy used his elbow to push Luo Qingmian's waist. Qingmian, you have such a beautiful older sister. How come you've never brought her to meet us? This beauty is your older sister. She looks completely like your younger sister. When boys saw beautiful girls, they would inevitably tease them. Not all of them had bad intentions. Some just thought they were pretty and praised them. But in front of the school flower, praising another girl like this, as the always egotistical Xiaoruan, she was naturally unhappy. In addition, four of the five musketeers of their music school were completely in love with her. The only one who didn't have a strategy was Luo Qingmian. Although he was blind and couldn't see her beauty, she wasn't blind and could see his handsomeness. In addition, many people had given Luo Qingmian love letters at school, but he had always lightly rejected them. This kind of boy made a girl like her want to conquer him even more. After all, what you couldn't get was always in turmoil. In this world, the more you couldn't get it, the more you wanted it. Cuckoo. She cleared her throat and said, Is this older sister Qingmian's blood-related older sister? Her voice was very delicate, and she played with her wavy hair as she spoke. Actually, she didn't have a high fever. She only had a slight fever. She didn't need so many people to come visit her, but she still secretly leaked the news of her illness. Luo Qingchun turned her eyes and saw her provocative eyes. She knit her brows and said, Sister, let's go back. Luo Qingmian held Luo Qingchun's wrist and said, Don't be angry. He could feel that Luo Qingchun was angry over the phone. In fact, he rarely saw his sister angry. She had always been weak, and anger was something that almost never appeared in her life. But in the past few days, she seemed to have changed into a different person. There was a slight, domineering aura in her indifference, making people unable to help but look up to her. Elder sister, I've really troubled Qingmian today. I'm fine. He came all the way here because he was worried about me. Xia Ruan's voice was still very sweet. There was a smile at the corner of her mouth, but her eyes were sharp and arrogant as she looked at Luo Qingchun. It's all my fault. Sister, don't be angry with him. As soon as she finished speaking, she did not forget to cover her mouth and cough twice to show that she was weak and obedient. When the boys heard this, they immediately shifted their gazes from Luo Qingchun to her. It's no trouble. It was no trouble at all. Ruan, you are a little princess. That's right. Your recovery is more important than anything else. Isn't that right? When I called Qingmian, he was always worried about you. In the next second, Luo Qingmian frowned and said, As long as it's a friend, I will be nervous. He didn't know why he said this, but in front of his sister, he especially wanted to distance himself from all the girls. Chapter 23:60. Xia Ruan's expression changed. She was clearly unhappy, but she couldn't show it. She could only smile and say, It seems that sister's upbringing must be very strict. Qingmian is so scared of you. Suddenly, she seemed to understand why she tried so hard to show off in front of Luo Qingmian, but she never got any response. It turned out that their family had such a beautiful sister. But logically speaking, why would a blind person care about beauty or ugliness? I'm not. Luo Qingchun frowned and wanted to explain, but she was interrupted by Luo Qingchun. It's good that you know. Actually, she had seen so many little white flowers that she could tell at a glance whether they were faking it or not. Although this girl called Xia Ruan looked very polite, and always called her sister, sister. It was obvious that she was the kind of girl who wanted the spotlight to always be on her. She didn't want to give up even the slightest bit. This kind of girl had a common problem. As long as they saw a beautiful girl, they would unconsciously want to compare themselves to her, and thus attract everyone's attention. Her cold words made the atmosphere in the room extremely awkward. Although the boys didn't see Xiao Ruan's hostility towards Luo Qingchen, they could clearly see Luo Qingchen's hostility towards Xiao Ruan. One of the boys broke the awkward atmosphere and said, "Qing Mian, you and your sister go first. The four of us will take care of Xiao Ruan here. You don't have to worry." "Okay." Luo Qingmian nodded and strode forward. He didn't even say goodbye to Xiao Ruan. His brows were furrowed the whole time. Actually, at some point, he hated himself. His family was like this. His mother was weak, his sister was weak, and he was weak. Just like today, he knew that the end of the world had arrived, and the rain outside was the medium of the virus. But a phone call from a friend made him unable to refuse. The friend said, Ruan wants the 5 swordsmen to go together. You can't go against our goddess' wishes." As for Xiao Ruan, he didn't hate her, but he didn't like her either. He knew that his 4 friends liked Xiao Ruan, but he didn't like her. Not long ago, when Xiao Ruan confessed to him, he decisively rejected her. Of course, he had never told anyone about this. "Qing Mian." When he walked to the door, Xiao Ruan called out to him. She slightly nodded and looked at him with misty eyes. "Is it because your older sister is strict that you refuse me?" When Xiao Ruan said this, the other 4 people's gazes all landed on Luo Qingmian. They were surprised, puzzled, and even jealous. Ruan, you like Qing Mian?" One of them, Guing, looked at Luo Qingmian in disbelief and laughed coldly. "Why would you like a blind man?" Guing was a rich second generation. He was dressed in famous brands from head to toe. Such unpleasant words came from the mouth of one of the 5 swordsmen. Luo Qingmian frowned, but didn't say anything. Actually, at this moment, there was an indescribable feeling in his heart. It turned out that in the eyes of his brother, he was just a blind man who was not worthy of the school bell. "I've never received a confession." Xiao Ruan was just joking. Chapter 2361. It had to be said that this wave of hatred between the brothers was full marks. Xiao Ruan successfully made the female lead halo appear on her head again, and she was giving them blessings as an elder. The surrounding atmosphere was extremely awkward, but Luo Qingchen was very relaxed. She put her hands in her pockets and shrugged. She smiled and said, "Do you really want me to be your witness?" Xiao Ruan was stunned, her eyes glazed over, but immediately turned into a determined gaze and nodded. "Yes. Even if the end of the world comes, will you stay by my brother's side and not leave him?" She asked again, her eyes still smiling. Xiao Ruan nodded firmly, "Yes." "Very good." Luo Qingchen raised her eyebrows and smiled faintly. She turned to look at Luo Qingmian. Mian, such a good girl is dead set on you. Even if the end of the world comes, she won't leave you. How can you bear to reject her?" Actually, her words had a trace of sarcasm, but whether Xiao Ruan could hear it, she didn't know. "Sister," Luo Qingmian frowned. "I don't have any thoughts about love. Let's go back. Mom is alone in the hotel. I'm worried." Luo Qingchen thought, "You dare to come out even if you're worried. Her brother is such a good person. He needs to be taught a lesson. He knows that this is a special time, but because of a call from his brother, he didn't even think before coming. A good person who doesn't reject others will always be at a disadvantage. Qingmian, Xiao Ruan already told you so. Why are you still pretending?" Gu Ying, who was standing at the side, was very unhappy and snorted, "You're so pretentious." "Gu Ying, don't say that about Qingmian." Chun Bing, another one of the 5 swordsmen, said, "Qingmian didn't mean that." "Why didn't he mean that?" "A grown man only knows how to pretend to be weak." Xiao Ruan said that because she pitied you for being blind. Guing walked forward and pushed Luo Qingmian. She used a lot of force, but Luo Qingmian only took 2 steps back and didn't fall. Luo Qingchen frowned. She wanted to teach Guing a lesson. She was a protective and unreasonable person. Moreover, This Guing had obviously been a rich second-generation heir for a long time. His words were really unpleasant. Even if she was not Luo Qingyan's sister, she would destroy him on behalf of the Red Moon. However, just as this thought appeared in her mind, her gaze landed on the building opposite the window. The words that were on the tip of his tongue didn't leave his mouth. The room opposite was the hospital's intensive care unit. The young man who was lying on the bed with a high fever suddenly opened his eyes. His face was contorted in pain. He seemed to tilt his head, and the sound of bones cracking could be heard from all over his body. In the next second, he pounced on the nurse, who was observing the numbers not far away, and bit her neck. In that instant, the blood splattered onto the white curtains. It was a ghastly sight, and this scene was seen by Luo Qingxian. It seemed that it would not be easy for them to walk out of this hospital. Chapter 2362. Guing clearly didn't understand Luo Qingxian's words and scoffed. You people from the Luo family are so weird. One is blind, and the other has a mental problem. You're talking as if something will happen. Don't tell me you're paranoid. Also, no matter what happens, I will protect Xiao Wan, unlike a certain blind person. Shut up. Luo Qingyan took a step forward and pushed Guing away. Guing didn't expect Luo Qingyan's strength to suddenly become so great. She stumbled back and fell to the ground. Luo Qingyan, you bastard. You can insult me, but you don't have the qualifications to insult my elder sister. His every word was extremely cold, and his beautiful eyes were filled with waves of cold air. Guing seemed to be intimidated by his cold aura. She was about to curse him, but she suddenly choked on her words. Xiao Wan looked at Luo Qingyan with a hint of admiration. Even though he was blind, Luo Qingyan was too good-looking. Plus the aura he exuded. She couldn't help but take a second look. But it was a pity that Luo Qingyan's cool words were not for her. Damn it! Why did he feel jealous of his sister? He was so unhappy. After a few seconds, Guing came back to his senses. He stood up and pointed at Luo Qingyan's nose. You're good. Luo Qingyan, you're good. Just wait and see. I don't believe you can appear in the music academy again. Guing thought that her family background was very good, and it was easy for her to not show up at the Academy of Music. If it wasn't for the fact that Luo Qingyan had many girlfriends who sent him love letters, and that he was talented in drawing, he wouldn't have allowed a blind person to become one of the 5 musketeers. Now, this blind person not only wanted to steal the girl he admired, but also used such a disrespectful tone to talk to him. He couldn't take it. Just as Guing finished speaking, there was a scream from not far away. The screams came one after another, each louder than the last, and the hospital instantly fell into a horror movie scene. Everyone looked at each other with a hint of panic in their eyes. At this time, only Luo Qingxian leisurely raised her eyes and smiled coldly. I think whether we can appear in the Academy of Music is a matter of the future. What we should discuss now is whether we can get out of this hospital. As soon as he finished speaking, an angel in white rushed out of the door. Her nurse uniform had long been dyed red with blood, her hair was sticky, and her nails had turned gray. The most frightening thing was that her feet were off the ground, and her limbs were wrapped around a man's body. Her bright red mouth was biting the man's neck. Cracking sounds came from all around. The man seemed to want to moan, but before he could make a sound, he had already collapsed. The one who screamed the loudest was Guing, who had just wanted to kick Luo Qingyan out of school. This is a zombie? No way. Oh my god. They could tell that the nurse was a mutated zombie. Luo Qingxian wasn't surprised at all. After all, it was the year 2251, and there were already thousands of movies about zombies. Although the zombies in front of them were somewhat different from the ones in the movies, the general appearance was similar. Blood-red eyes, mechanical-like limbs, dark lips, and razor-sharp teeth. Chapter 2363. It had to be said that her words were absolutely provocative. At the same time, she didn't forget to protect Luo Qingyan behind her. Luo Qingyan felt her fingertips tremble as she felt an indescribable sadness. Although he couldn't see the scene in front of him, he knew that danger was coming. The air was filled with the smell of blood, and the screams and roars in his ears were getting louder and louder. In such a dangerous situation, he couldn't protect his sister and had to let her protect him. Ever since he was young, he knew that he was useless, but it had never been as strong as this moment. His sister was no longer weak. Whether it was her tone of voice or the way she did things, they were all so decisive. She had changed. Even if he couldn't see, he could feel that she had become so dazzling. But he was still so useless. Help! Guing saw the white angel and screamed as he ran in the opposite direction. Xiao Ruan's face instantly paled. Seeing Guing run in front of her, she immediately grabbed his hand and said with a trembling voice, "What do we do? What do we do?" She didn't know that Guing, who had always looked at her with admiration, now had a face of disgust. He grabbed her arm and pushed her in the direction of the zombie as he roared, "Get out of my way!" The zombie that was gnawing on the man's neck heard the voice and stopped its movement. "Katja! Katja!" She mechanically twisted her neck and the nurse's cap fell off her head. The moment she looked up, an extremely ferocious face was revealed. To be honest, even Luo Qingshun, who had seen so many bloody scenes, was disgusted by this scene. Blood dripped from the mouth, and the white eyes turned blood red from time to time. The skin on the face became transparent, and the blood vessels were clearly visible. The zombie slowly raised its head, and its empty eyes looked in Gu Ying's direction. But because of his push, it became Xiao Ruan who was closer to the zombie. "Guing, how can you do this?" In her panic, her feet seemed to be tied to a 1,000-pound boulder, and she couldn't move at all. She could only cover her mouth and look at Guing in disbelief. The man who sent her flowers every day was using her as a shield at this time. "What about me? Didn't a fickle woman like you say you liked Luo Qingmian?" Guing walked towards the window and said, "Then let him protect you. It's none of my business." The moment he finished speaking, 3 of the other 5 swordsmen scrambled to the window. In a life-and-death situation, the campus belle, goddess, and admirers all became unimportant. He had never seen a zombie before, but he had seen a zombie movie. In this situation, he had to leave the room as soon as possible to survive. He's blind. How can he protect me? Furthermore, I don't like blind people. If you come and save me, I'll be with you. In a moment of desperation, Xiao Ruan practically blurted out these words. She suddenly regretted saying that she liked Luo Qingmian. She didn't like it. She didn't like it at all. However, in her life, she would always be a princess, receiving the attention of everyone. Because he couldn't get Luo Qingmian, he wanted to impress her even more. People always had endless vanity, not to mention that she was the campus belle. In 3 more seconds, that zombie will find the direction to attack. Luo Qingshun looked at the sky. Although it wasn't as dark as before, the visibility was still very low. Chapter 2364. When Luo Qingshun opened her mouth to speak, Xiao Ruan's gaze once again fell on her body. Right now, the only possible way for her to survive was to divert the zombie's attention. She lowered her head and glanced at the stool in front of her. Suddenly, the evil side of her took over all of her heart. The bad side of the human heart was completely exposed, and even the look in her eyes changed from panic to cunning. The surroundings seemed to quiet down. Because the ward they were in was not on the first floor, jumping down from the window was still risky. The 4 boys could only temporarily stand by the window, waiting to see if there was a rescue team downstairs. Xiao Ruan was in the same direction as them, so if she wanted to divert the zombie's attention, she could only make a sound from the other direction. 3 seconds later, Xiao Ruan bent down as fast as she could, lifted the chair, and threw it in the direction of Luo Qingshun. In fact, Luo Qingshun had seen her series of eyes, including the way she looked down at the stool. She was very clear about what she wanted to do. Once on the edge of life and death, everyone wanted to live. In the end of the world, there was no need to be bound by the law, so naturally, there was no need to care about other people's lives. As long as she could survive, what did their lives have to do with her? The next second, only a dong sound was heard. Luo Qingshun raised her hand and grabbed a chair. Although the chair did not fall, it still made a sound. The zombie's line of sight looked in the direction of Luo Qingshun. In an instant, it locked on the direction and rushed over. Humph! Only a light snort was heard, She directly took out a Swiss Army knife from her pocket through the secondary portable space, jumped, and stabbed towards the zombie's skull. Her speed was very fast, almost several times faster than the zombie's speed. Black sticky blood burst out from the brain, and a purple crystal core appeared in midair. Only a sound was heard, and the zombie fell to the ground. The surrounding was filled with a rotten smell. The ward seemed to have experienced a great battle, but this so-called zombie did not even touch the corner of Luo Qingqian's clothes. Standing not far away, Xiao Ruan's eyes widened, almost incredulously looking at Luo Qingqian. How is this possible? How could she kill a zombie? The so-called 5 swordsmen standing by the window froze on the spot at the same time. One of them, Chun Bing, who had just helped her out of the situation, took the lead and said, "That, Qing Mian, I didn't expect your sister to be so powerful. Let's go together. That way, we can take care of each other." Yes, yes. The zombie virus in the movie spreads very quickly. This hospital must have more than one zombie. Yes, yes, yes. Let's go together. As they spoke, they approached Luo Qingqian. Although Gu Ying was still not very willing, in this life and death situation, he had to be close to Luo Qingqian like them. After all, her maneuvering just now was really amazing. "Did I say that I'm going with you?" Luo Qingqian raised her eyes, and a cold light flashed in her eyes. "How about this? You ask my brother if he's willing. If he's willing, I can take one of you with me. As for who it is, you can discuss among yourselves." The corner of her mouth slightly raised, and she looked at them with an extremely cold smile. In this life and death situation, would they protect the so-called goddess out of danger, or would they not give way to each other? And in the end, what about killing each other? Chapter 2365. For a moment, the brothers who had said they would go together suddenly changed their faces. Even those who were standing next to each other separated. Gu Ying looked down. The roads near the hospital were all blocked. The street was full of frightened screams, and red blood stained the vision. The number of zombies in such a narrow place multiplied. Their speed was many times faster than ordinary people. Once they found a target, they would throw themselves down, biting and sucking fresh blood with their sharp teeth. He must have this quota, to leave the hospital with them and reach the safe area. Thinking of this, his eyebrows moved slightly, and in a short moment of silence, he suddenly opened the window on the other side and pushed the 2 people standing next to him out of the window. "A dash!" Xiao Ruan screamed, looking at Gu Ying with a pale face. She did not expect that Gu Ying would do such a thing, devoid of all human nature. But perhaps in Gu Ying's eyes, she had already lost her humanity when she threw the stool to Luo Qingqian. Goddess, campus belle. When the apocalypse came, she was worse than a beast. The 2 boys who were pushed down by him looked at him with despair and hatred. But they could do nothing. They could only fall into the arms of zombies. In a room full of rotten smell, there were only 5 people left at this moment. In addition to Luo Qingqian and her brother, there was Xiao Ruan, Gu Ying, and Chun Bing, who often came out to smooth things over. He was quite far away from Gu Ying just now. So when Gu Ying pushed the other 2 people down, he was able to escape. Because usually, among the 5 swordsmen, his character was relatively neutral. He liked to be a peacemaker, not a good person, but not a bad person. But to be honest, in the apocalypse, this kind of person usually died the fastest. Luo Qingqian was not in a hurry. With her hands in her pockets, leaning against the wall of the ward, she looked sideways and said, "Not bad. I got rid of 2. So, the remaining 3 of you, who is going to go with me?" Although they were surprised that Gu Ying pushed 2 students down from the 3rd floor with his bare hands, they did not think it was cruel. In the apocalypse, nothing could be called cruel. Whether or not they could survive would depend on their own abilities. In another parallel universe, the original owner was too weak, always caring about this and that, and in the end ended up with such a tragic fate. Today, she was no longer the Luo Qingqian who only cared about the lives of others and did not care about her own life. Of course, the most important thing was that the so-called 5 swordsmen, other than her kind-hearted younger brother, were not good people. Xiao Ruan gritted his teeth as cold sweat trickled down his forehead. Her face was very pale. She stared at Luo Qingshun with panicked and empty eyes and said, "As a person, you have to keep your word. But since you said you would take one of us away, you have to keep your word." She didn't know if Luo Qingshun would hold a grudge. The scene of her throwing the stool towards them was still vivid in her mind. Could it be that she would really take her away? "Of course, I'll keep my word." Luo Qingshun glanced at the door and saw several wandering zombies walking back and forth. Chapter 2366. All right. Xiaoruan took a deep breath and glanced at the door from the corner of her eyes. The next second, she ran 2 steps in Gu Ying's direction and shouted, "Ah." Before Gu Ying could react, Xiaoruan had already rushed towards Luo Qingmian, grabbing his arm and saying, "Qingmian, save me, will you? I know what I did was wrong, but I'm really scared. Please save me." Luo Qingxian narrowed her eyes. She suddenly had a new understanding of Xiaoruan, this little white flower whose vanity was off the charts. Her move was quite smart. Firstly, she could make the zombies attack Gu Ying. Secondly, she could grab hold of Luo Qingmian as her last hope. She knew that he was kind, or perhaps weak. The zombies outside the door heard the noise, and a dozen zombies rushed into the room. The entire ward suddenly fell into a state of depression. No one dared to say a word. Xiaoruan was lying on top of Luo Qingmian. After all, Luo Qingxian's smooth operation was enough to prove that in this room, only Luo Qingxian had the ability to kill zombies. In that case, she would definitely protect her brother. As long as she kept pestering Luo Qingmian, she would have a chance to live. At this time, more than a dozen zombies were less than a meter away from Gu Ying. Chun Bing covered her mouth on the other side and didn't dare to breathe. The zombies were still moving forward, getting closer and closer to Gu Ying. He was on the verge of collapsing. In a split second, he used all his strength to rush towards Xiaoruan and push her away. Xiaoruan was already clinging onto Luo Qingmian, but Gu Ying's push made her lose her balance. But the zombie immediately pounced on her. At the moment of life and death, she did not hesitate to push Luo Qingmian forward. To Luo Qingmian, the sentence, "But I'm really scared, please save me," was still ringing in her ears. All of a sudden, he felt disheartened. What is humanity? What is morality? What is kindness? Those zombies were covered in blood, and the sound of bones cracking could be heard. After finding their targets, they pounced on them without saying a word. His white eyeballs looked like they were about to fall out. It was a ghastly sight. In the next second, Luo Qingshun snorted coldly, closed her eyes, and murmured, "Time and space freeze." The space here was too narrow. She could kill all the zombies, but it didn't mean that her brother wouldn't be hurt. In order to be complete, she used her own special ability. Everything around her froze. She pulled Luo Qingmian, who was only a few centimeters away from the zombie, towards Chun Bing. One had to admit that Chun Bing was actually quite smart. There was a bunker where he stood, not far from the window and not far from the door. Luo Qingshun didn't have any pity, but if she had to bring one of them into the room, she would have no choice. She would take care of Chun Bing, who hadn't had any bad intentions so far. Although the apocalypse was terrible, if humanity was obliterated, then what was the difference between humans and zombies? After she pulled Luo Qingmian behind the bunker, her gaze once again landed on Xiaoruan. Without Luo Qingmian as a shield, the zombies would attack Xiaoruan directly. Of course, that was a blind spot. Other than Xiaoruan, Gu Ying also had nowhere to run. Chapter 2367. Everything returned to normal. Xiaoruan's hands were still in the position of pushing people, but Luo Qingmian was no longer there. Not far away from her were those zombies who were already ready to move, wanting to suck her blood. "Ah!" she screamed in panic, desperately looking for Luo Qingmian's figure. When she found him on the diagonal, her beautiful eyes were full of despair. "No, save me, save me," she shouted loudly, looking for the last bit of hope to survive. But it was useless, it was useless. The zombies rushed over and pressed her to the ground. A few seconds ago, they could still hear Xiaoruan's cries for help, but a few seconds later, there was only the sound of zombies chewing. "Ah, Katja! Katja!" 10 seconds later, Xia Ruan, who was wearing a pink dress and had long hair, stood up from the zombie pile. Probably because she struggled for a long time, her skin was bitten by the zombies. Blood was still flowing out drop by drop, and some of the bones could be seen clearly. Half of the intestines beside her stomach fell out. Chun Bing couldn't accept it, covering his mouth and almost vomiting. Luo Qingshan frowned and gave him a look that could only be understood but not explained. Basically, it was, please don't make a sound, or you'll be the next Yarwan. Chun Bing immediately understood Luo Qingshan's meaning. He took a deep breath, and even his breathing became careful. On the other hand, Xiaoruan, who was not far away, twisted her neck and opened her bloody mouth to stare at Guing in the corner. Her eyes were empty, but there was a hint of hatred in them. The rich second-generation heir who used to call her a goddess, the rich second-generation heir who sent her flowers every day, the rich second-generation heir who said that he wouldn't like anyone but her, was actually so resolute towards her at the moment of life and death. In fact, she didn't have a heartbeat. She didn't have any thoughts. But it was hatred, a hatred that surpassed space and life. Don't come over, don't come over. Guing shook his head in panic, and his whole body couldn't stop shaking as he retreated to the corner. But the moment his back hit the wall, his eyes widened. He held his head with both hands as two streams of tears flowed out. He did not forget to shout, "There are people over there, there are people over there. Go and bite them, okay? Let me go, okay?" As he spoke, he pointed in the direction of Luo Qingshan. But how could the zombies understand this? In this pitch-black place, they could only follow the sounds. Guiying's shout made them even more certain of the direction of the blood. With Xiaoruan, who had turned into a zombie, as the leader, they rushed towards the blood. No, no, no. After 3 consecutive no's, Guiying could no longer make any sound. In the quiet ward, only the sound of gnawing and sucking could be heard. Kacha, smack, kacha, smack. A few seconds later, Guiying, who didn't have a single piece of skin on his body, stood up from the zombie pile. Luo Qingshan narrowed his eyes and raised the corner of his mouth into a cold smile. He said to Luo Qingyan and Chun Bing behind him, "You two stay where you are and don't move." Chun Bing wanted to say something, but he was interrupted by Luo Qingshan. Chapter 2368. In the post-apocalyptic world, saving people was a favor, not saving people was a duty. Just because you saved someone, it didn't mean that the person would be grateful to you. They might even hurt you for their own benefit. The memory of the original owner reminded her not to do stupid things like saving people. And Chun Bing tactfully responded and didn't say anything else. Luo Qingshan narrowed her eyes and took out the Swiss Army knife from the secondary portable space. The room wasn't big, so she had to be fast to deal with these zombies. Actually, if it was outside, she could use her Fengwu sword to deal with them, but it was a bit tricky in the room. But it didn't mean it was impossible. "Sister," Luo Qingyan nervously held her arm. His heart jumped to his throat. Although he couldn't see, a blind person's hearing was very good. He could feel that there were a lot of people around, or more accurately, there were a lot of zombies. He also knew that the zombie was dealt with by his sister, but there were so many people around, he couldn't let her fight alone. After all, he was so scared that she would get hurt, scared that she would die. But so what if he was worried? So what if he was scared? He couldn't do anything. At most, he could only die with her. "Don't worry." Luo Qingshan very healingly raised her right hand and gently touched his head. "I'm not that weak Luo Qingshan anymore." Because she felt Luo Qingyan's worry. She felt that she had to protect him even if he was a blind person or an ordinary person who could never awaken his ability. As soon as her voice fell, her cold eyes narrowed, and she leaped toward the direction of the zombies to attack. A dozen zombies couldn't react in time due to the sudden attack, and a few zombies on the periphery were quickly dealt with by her. Taking out the purple nucleus from the head, Luo Qingshan used the Swiss Army knife in her right hand to cut in the direction of another zombie, taking out another purple nucleus from its head. In the face of more than a dozen zombies, her movements were smooth and clean. The coldness in her eyes seemed to have seen through the world. 5 minutes later, the room was quiet again. Luo Qingshun took out the last crystallic nucleus on top of Gu Ying's head. The crystallic nucleus was as small as Xia Ruan's, and the energy obtained was relatively less. Because they had only been zombies for a short period of time, the nuclei in their heads had not yet formed, so the amount of energy they could gather was very little. She put the nucleus into her secondary portable space and waited for her offensive ability to awaken. If he guessed correctly, she must have awakened her supernatural ability when she was in the supermarket. She turned around gracefully and put her hands back into her pockets. There were some bloodstains on her body, but it didn't affect her cold temperament at all. Bing was still very confused about all this. After all, the last time he saw a so-called psychic was in a movie. But this time, it was truly reflected in his eyes. It was truly inconceivable. But he still had a doubt. He had wanted to ask the question just now. Qing Mian's big sister. That. He scratched the back of his head with his right hand and looked at her with a bit of difficulty. I have a question I want to ask you. I know what you want to ask. Luo Qingshun narrowed her eyes and said, in the apocalypse, no one can protect you for granted. You, how do you know what I want to ask? Chapter 2369. Since most of the zombies on the third floor had been taken care of, Luo Qingshun's group of 3 didn't encounter many zombies when they came out. She easily took care of them before heading to the hotel. Bing followed them. He seemed very timid, but he was also a bit confused. There was a large group of zombies on the way to the hotel. Although there weren't many, Luo Qingshun could clearly feel that these zombies were much stronger than the ones in the hospital. It seemed that some of them would soon become Phase 2 zombies from Phase 1 zombies. It was a good thing they weren't that strong yet, and there weren't that many of them. Standing at the entrance of the hotel, Luo Qingshun showed her room card before being allowed to enter. After entering, the security guards gave them a series of checks before letting them return to the hotel. This was the same as she remembered. It seemed like this hotel was safe for the time being. Ding, ding, ding. Her phone rang, and Luo Qingshun looked down at the caller ID. Qian Sinai. She knit her brows. She actually forgot about him? Luo Qingmian seemed to have heard her phone ring as she nervously knit her brows. Big sister. It's too dangerous outside. Don't go out. He had a feeling that the person calling his big sister at this time must be someone very important to her. This feeling was very strong, just like the scene he saw in his mind before the apocalypse. It's only temporarily safe here. It doesn't mean it'll always be safe. Luo Qingshun narrowed her eyes. I haven't seen any power users on the way here. It seems like they haven't awakened yet. This was a bit troublesome. If the number of zombies reach a certain level, power users would be easily outnumbered and killed. Before this, she had to meet with Qian Sinai to discuss where to go next. But no buts. Luo Qingshun placed her right hand on his head. Take care of your mom. I'll come back to pick you up. Right now, they didn't know which city was the country's final safe zone. If they brought her little brother and mother, it would be more dangerous. At least this hotel was safe right now, and a city wouldn't fall this quickly. Luo Qingmian wanted to say something, but she felt her big sister's determination. He sighed, clenched his fists, and loosened them. He was so useless he could only rely on his sister to protect him, and he would always be a burden to her. It's better to stay here. Don't make her worry. Don't distract her. Luo Qingshun saw that Luo Qingmian didn't say anything and turned to leave the hotel, but Bing stopped her. Qingmian's older sister. He was a bit nervous as he paused. You went in that direction. Luo Qingshun was stunned for a moment. She did not expect Bing to ask such a question. Logically speaking, this was already a relatively safe place. He should keep his mouth shut and stay put. After all, he should have seen her ability to kill zombies. If he followed her, he wouldn't die for a while. Century Square. Luo Qingshun raised her cold eyes and looked at him. Where are you going? Bing pursed her lips and said, My house is also in that direction. If it's possible, can Big Sister take me for a while? In fact, to Bing, he was a very tacky person. He might not have the heart to harm others, but he also did not have the heart to save others. Chapter 2370. Okay. Luo Qingshun shrugged and said, But I won't bring you back. She didn't break her promise. She said she would take him out of the hospital, and she did it. I know. Shinbing nodded and said, I've seen a lot of zombie movies, and I know you have no obligation to protect my safety. Okay. She responded faintly, took out a black hat from the secondary portable space, and put it on her head. Pay attention to your own safety. The dark skies seemed to be a little brighter, but still looked foggy. There were almost no pedestrians coming and going on the street. Buses and cars were jammed in the middle of the road. The ground was full of blood, but there was no corpse. Anyone who was bitten by a zombie would become a zombie. Unless the zombie's crystal nucleus was taken out, they could kill endlessly. Now, they didn't see a corpse of a zombie along the way, which proved that the paranormals really didn't appear. Luo Qingshan frowned. While walking quickly, she always felt very flustered, and her chest was stuffy. This feeling made her breath begin to quicken, and cold sweat broke out on her back. You don't look so good. Chun Bing, who was walking beside her, apparently saw something wrong with her. He frowned and said, Let's take a break. Suddenly, she felt that Chun Bing was a good person. At least he didn't ignore her physical condition because of the surrounding danger. She smiled and said, What's wrong? Are you worried that I can't protect you? No. He hurriedly shook his head and explained, I just see that you're not in a good state. Don't panic. Luo Qingshan frowned and shook her head. I'm fine. Maybe it was because she used her own ability in this plane and consumed too much physical strength, so she felt a little weak. The Century Square was not far from the hotel. After Luo Qingshan killed a few zombies along the path, she came to the center of the square. She knew that the Bai family was now in the department store above. The scenes in her memory emerged little by little in front of her eyes. If the original owner hadn't met Bai Lianxin's family in the supermarket, she wouldn't have suffered such a tragedy. She really couldn't wait to take revenge. Standing on the southeast side of the city square, she could clearly feel that the ground was densely packed with zombies. It would not be easy to enter the square. My house is in Soho below the city square. What should I do? Looking at this scene, Chun Bing was a little anxious. He wanted to walk forward, but was stopped by Luo Qingshan. Even I don't have the confidence to walk through this square in this situation. You're just going to die. Luo Qingshan pursed her lips, feeling that her palms were abnormally hot. She took back her previous thoughts. This was definitely not as simple as overusing her special ability. Could it be, you save us, save us? An old man's voice came from his side. Beside him stood his white-haired wife and a 5-year-old grandson. Chun Bing was stunned for a moment. He took a closer look and said, Uncle, it's me. You must be Bing Bing from downstairs. The old man asked, What exactly is going on? Why are there so many monsters all of a sudden? We can't even return home. Luo Qingshan frowned and looked up and down at the old man. A faint light flashed in her eyes. 2 old men with a child could survive the initial stage of the zombie outbreak and come to this relatively safe place. Chapter 2371. Luo Qingshan probably knew what Chun Bing wanted to say. She squinted her eyes and put her hands in her pockets. There are so many zombies here. We definitely can't go through the front door. Don't go through the front door. Don't go through the front door. The old woman looked at the old man and shook her head. This city square has a side door that leads directly to the Soho upstairs. We can go there, Chun Bing nodded. I know where it is. Sister also has a passage that leads directly to the mall. The 5-year-old boy seemed to feel her hesitation. He gave her the lollipop in his hand and said, Thank you, sister. Luo Qingshan was slightly stunned. She glanced at the little boy and didn't take the lollipop. Instead, she looked at the 2 old men and said, Please lead the way. They really did take the side path. There were almost no zombies on the way. When they reached the safety door, the old man stopped and said, We just walked here and turned back. It's too dark inside. We don't dare to walk. Chun Bing frowned with some doubts. Hey, isn't this the east door? If we go here, it's still a long way to go to our house. Yes, yes. The old man's eyes trembled and said, But there are monsters in other places. Luo Qingshan waved her right hand. The exquisite ring on her hand glowed faintly. She walked inside. Chun Bing followed beside her. The 2 old men and the child followed behind her. They were right. This safe passage was really dark. It should be because all the circuits had collapsed. They couldn't see anything, but the smell of blood in the air was getting heavier and heavier. Just when Luo Qingshun felt that something was wrong, there was a scream behind her. Then there was the sound of the iron door slamming shut. When she turned her head back, the old man and the child were already far away from the iron gate. Luo Qingshun frowned. She adjusted the brightness of the exquisite ring to the brightest. She vaguely looked inside. The passage ahead was blocked, and there were zombies on both sides of them, probably due to the sudden bright light around them. The zombies didn't react in time. They stopped moving and stood still. Chen Bing was shocked. He looked at the two old men outside the iron gate and said, "What are you doing?" "I'm sorry, Bing Bing," the old man said as he ran in the other direction. "This is the only way to the west. If we go around it, we'll definitely run into the monster at the corner up ahead. Only when you make some noise will the monster be attracted to us, and we'll be able to go back." As soon as he finished speaking, he took out a small stereo from the shopping bag, turned up the music that was essential for square dancing to the loudest, and placed it outside the iron gate, but out of their reach. Luo Qingshun sneered, her eyes cold. Despicable humans. In order to leave safely, they did not hesitate to use the weak side of others as bait. She finally understood why the two old people and a child could survive until they met her without being discovered by the zombies. Perhaps they weren't the only ones who became bait. Now you understand? Luo Qingshun coldly raised her eyes and looked at Chen Bing. In the apocalypse, there are no friends. Even if they were neighbors who had known each other for many years, they could still do such a heartless thing to survive. But in their hearts, they didn't even feel guilty.